the next 2 weeks we are going to watch.
Pipe dream, that's not going to happen, but he might be able to just do it by just rolling up into Cyril's face. He's trying to prophecy! It's done!
All of these 4 drop notes by our Blizzard player. In the southeast of Disco.
soO down, the mailing block, the majority of them. Ultras are on the way.
For a good sign, Rainer down on army supply, down on workers, and possibly now down again in the WCF final. GG! One more time, one more trophy.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen, here. What a phenomenal series to start off the day as a whole, as we just saw Showtime going up against Dark, and it went all the way. It went all the way in that full best of 5, and Dark was able to eke things out towards the end, but it was anything but a one-sided series, Pig.
Yeah, it was about an as action-packed a start as we could hope for. A few moments where one player was way ahead and the other one just refused to go down. They kind of Showtime clawing his way back into that last game. Looked like he might have even had an advantage at one point, but I'm just so excited. You know, that matchup, sometimes a player runs away with a lead. You get a one-sided series. This was the opposite of that.
Yeah, you can see that Showtime's PvZ practice has really kicked in. Like it's hard because he's never been better at PvZ than right now, but his first opponent is Dark. That's the rough thing. So you're really being pushed to the mile. And I'm happy that series went to Game 5. I honestly couldn't pick the winner until obviously the last few minutes, but solid start to this broadcast, I reckon.
Sure, I think that overall, something that did stand out for me, aside from Showtime actually winning the first game, is that the complexion of the entire series, Artosis, could have been a whole lot different if one more tick of damage had gone onto a Nidusworm in game number 2.
Oh, I know, yeah. It seemed like a series that Showtime absolutely could have won. A couple of those games, just, you know, like you said, you needed like 2 more mana on your Oracle, and you were going to kill that Nidus, and then all that damage would have been negated, and then you know the Niduses are there, and you can start swatting them down. Or even in that last game, if he catches that Nidus in his main base, he probably wins game number 5 at that point. So Showtime really brought it here today, which I find impressive because we were talking about how Dark just seems like the strongest Korean this year.
And if there were 2 MVPs, we've already mentioned kind of the Nidusworm here for a little while, but the Swarm Host was definitely probably the second of the MVPs here for Dark throughout this series. Unfortunately for Showtime, there wasn't that many great answers to try and negate a lot of the damage that was coming his way.
Well, I mean, we can see that his spirit animal is the Oracle in this matchup, right? I mean, it was like, all right, we're going to go 3 Oracles, and then, you know, 4 Oracles. Just keep upping that Oracle count. Surprise Oracles in the messy game in Game 5 ended up diving in and getting a lot of workers, and they hunted down so many Ravagers, Nidusworms, Swarm Hosts, so I think he made a lot of work with it, and when a lot of players are struggling to find damage with the Oracles, Showtime looked pretty good with it. So I think, you know, it was a defeat, but definitely showed some good play.
Yeah, I felt like actually his play was not even at the forward part of the like Korean PvZ metagame, like going for Stargate and everything, but I think he handled it really well. And you got to consider him as someone who can advance from this group, even if he plays Dark again.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, when Maynard, when it takes a look at how things actually work out here, obviously, Showtime going down in this series, unfortunate for him, but it did look like a very strong series from Showtime, which probably gives you better prospects for the future of this group.
I think so, yeah. I mean, you know, the other two players, soO and SpeCial, he's already mentioned in his interview that he's not super keen against Terran. He's pretty worried about SpeCial, but if he can get that soO result, you know, in the losers match, I think he's going to be very, very confident.
Yeah, and hopefully we get to take a look at some of the highlights here from this series as a whole, because there was a lot of noteworthy moments here throughout this. I'm not sure whether or not we're going to be able to pull that up. Yes, indeed, we are.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it's fine. As of course here, starting things off, very strong presence of mind in the defenses from Showtime, showing why he is known as Demour, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, this is classic Dark versus Showtime BlizzCon. It's Dark trying to crash into the third, and Showtime making just an amazingly clean, efficient defense. Obviously echoes of last year's matches. What was cool about this game, though, skipping out on Storm, obviously Showtime saying, hey, you're not going Hydras, it's just Banelings and Lings, and for the most part, a few Ravages in the back. I just need a lot of Archons, lots of splash damage, and lots of ability to absorb those Baneling splashes, and this counterattack was deadly.
Yeah, that game one really was beautiful from Showtime. I was really impressed. You can tell he did his homework on Dark and knew how to absorb him. Yeah, it was kind of funny listening to Dark in the interview saying he didn't know what he did wrong. You know, but he's attacking into a wall of Archons at a third base with Ling Bane. So I know what he did wrong.
And this is the heartbreaker right here, just that extra little bit of energy.
Look at that! Look at this! Are you kidding me? One health, literally health one.
That was the difference between no damage whatsoever to the probe line or 18 workers.
I know!
Yeah. And he was so well prepared as well. Like, you could see the Oracles were waiting for it. He had everything set up, and then, oh man. I mean, obviously, he did lose an Oracle earlier, harassing. If he had the third Oracle, that would have been a huge margin there, which would have kept him safe, and that would have changed that game.
I suppose damage like that is like almost exponential, right? Because once you lose your 18 workers in that situation, then you're not thinking about maybe the next area that's going to be attacked, and it's just kind of the roll-on effect, I suppose.
Yeah, well, when the Locusts land in one of your first three bases and your army is sitting there fighting them, that's when I just close the book, man. The game is the game is very close to over at that point. You have to be out in the map threatening your opponent when he has Storm Hosts, and that game was just kind of a dumpster fire for him, unfortunately.
This Oracle stuff was really good there from Showtime. I mean, you can see that the triple Oracle play, it's been pretty figured out by a lot of Zergs. It's very, like, it's been in the meta for a while. But trying to drop an extra Oracle on him, finding some sick damage, and this amazing attack on this third base was so clutch from Showtime. We were backstage trying to figure out who was actually going to win the fight, but the force field's just too strong in the end.
When that fight was going down up towards the third base, I was a little bit surprised at the position he put himself in behind the mineral line. It could have gone a bit sour at that point, I suppose.
That whole fight had me on edge, man. Like, every time the Banelings came forward, I was like, Showtime, you've got to react. But he was purposely waiting to the last second to put the force fields down because he wanted to pick off as many Zerg units and then have Dark disengage. So there was a really cool micro dance, and I mean, it was just great micro, and I also questioned the move behind the minerals, but in the end, it turned out to be the right call. Showtime cleaned up that fight.
Cannon commitment on Winter's Gate in game number 5, and overall, it got the damage it wanted to do to the natural. How much of a commitment was it, though, relative to what was going on the other side? He then had to deal with the Nidus Swarms, which kind of eventually did turn south for him as well there, Artosis.
Yeah, you know, it was really brutal when that one got up in the main base, and Pig was actually saying backstage, and I have to agree that you can kind of leave the spines hitting your wall. It doesn't matter that much. What matters is your opponent does not get past your wall. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's what happened. And it turned into a very tough game against the Stormos. But I got to say, as Nathaniel said, you know, big props to Showtime because staying alive for this long. The Oracles, they were MVP there.
They were. And when you're playing Nidus Worm Whack-A-Mole like this with the Swarm Hosts, it just really snowballs. Like, you get one Nidus Worm out, you launch one wave of Locust, it hits the probe line, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're playing catch-up rather than being on top of it. And yeah, started to lose more and more ground here as we're just seeing these Nidus Worms just continuing to find damage.
I mean, come on, a lot of people are watching this and are saying, effectively, what are your answers? What are your good answers to this kind of Swarm Host play? Pig, I'm going to direct this at you because it didn't feel like, every time this happened to Showtime, it was almost free damage for Dark to just kind of keep laying down on Showtime. What are some ways he could have dealt with that?
I mean, the trick there is to not slide off the mountain in the first place, because what we were watching is Showtime kind of trying to grab a handhold as he fell off the mountain. As Dan was saying, you know, if you're getting Locusts into your mineral lines and you're standing there and fighting them, you're in huge trouble at that point. You need to be out on the map threatening. You need to be able to force those Locusts to be used defensively where you can disengage. Then you get to choose where the fights happen. And he managed to do that towards the end of that game, and it was like, hey, he's actually back in an even, maybe even ahead position. That one Nidosaur, we just saw in the highlight clip, bottom corner, you lose your base, you lose a bunch of units, 30 probes are gone. Suddenly, Dark's got it in the bag.
I know Dark is the winner of this series. That's fine. He's moving on to the winners match here. Does this change your estimations of Dark's prospects here for the tournament, considering it was a relatively close series here against Showtime?
Well, not really, to be honest. Even though Showtime has shown that he actually could have beaten Dark,
Yeah.
Showtime was, I guess, his #1 practice partner was SpeCial, right? And if you're going to find another player on the same level as Dark in these matchups, it is going to be SpeCial. So it makes sense that he is able to put forth such strong games. Is everyone in the tournament going to be able to bring Dark to those lengths to Game 5? I don't think so.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen, in regards to this series. We're going to be moving on to our next series now here in Group A, as we're going to take a look at how things have been shaping up so far here for Group A as a whole. As you can see, Dark has already advanced into that winners match, and now we will see Showtime going down into the lower bracket match here to figure out exactly who's going to be moving on to the decider later on. And that brings us nicely on to our next match, which will be soO going up against SpeCial. And this, for all intents and purposes, is a great match as well, because you've got soO on one side, our Intel Extreme Masters Katowice champion, arguably a World Championship title in namesake as a whole because of how the nature of Katowice here throughout the year, going up against SpeCial, who undoubtedly, aside from some of his Global Finals results, this, for his circuit performance, was the one where he finally broke that semi-final result to be able to get himself into a finals. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite go easily when you're going up against someone like SpeCial, but still, SpeCial's in great form.
Yeah, SpeCial's been ramping it up this year and looking very good. And he's shown a lot of variety in his play. I think definitely, you know, it's kind of funny with SpeCial because he's a player where he kind of looks at this map pool and he says, oh, it's really big, it's hard to finish players off, but he's one of the best players at just this harassment style, so good at late game, and also very good at those kind of mech styles, though they've recently fallen a little bit more out of flavor.
Yeah, I don't think he's a huge fan of the mech styles right now, but you still have to mix stuff like that in, right? You can't just play Bile 5 games in a row. That's going to be a very hard way to beat a player of soO's level. But I think, you know, stylistically, I think this is actually a very good matchup for SpeCial. Like, soO is a player that oftentimes stays on lower tech for longer, whereas, you know, the real problems that we're seeing for Terran players is oftentimes in that very late game.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? He's graduated to Hive Tech only recently, right? I remember thinking of soO as like the layer tech guy, and he's like, no, I'm actually training Hive Tech, I'm training Infestors and Broodlords a lot lately, which for me is like, I'm like, this is just so weird to see soO playing like that.
Maynard?
I mean, this is very likely going to be the aggressive Zerg going up against a pretty defensive Terran.
Yeah.
And even though SpeCial's been very vocal about, you know, you can't play mech, you can only play Bile. I mean, pro gamers all speak in absolutes. Can we be clear on that?
It's true.
Like, you know, there is likelihood, I agree with Dan, that mech maybe gets thrown in here just to offset the beat of everything, like just don't want to show him your hand all the time. But he's been, like, even though I favor SpeCial in this series, I actually feel he's been so vocal about not liking Zerg that hopefully he doesn't get into his head about it, because he's been really, really not a fan of this matchup in the map pool. He's made himself very well clear.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. This is time now to take a look at what our players think coming into the Global Finals as soO goes up against SpeCial.
여유로운 거는 좋았는데 너무 여유롭다 보니까 좀 마음이 좀 편안해서 게임을 좀 놓게 되는 것 같아요. 그래서 좀 많이 쉬어가지고 안 좋은 모습 많이 보여드려가지고 좀 그게 걱정이 되네요. 인생의 그 목표였던 우승을 하고 나니까 동기부여가 잘 안 되더라고요. 근데 마음속으로는 아 그러면 안 되는데라고 생각을 하면서도 몸이 안 움직이더라고요. 처음 받아봤어요 그런 숫자. 그나마 좀 다행이다. 만약에 도호 형이 못 가게 되면은 성주랑 세랄 있는 조로 가게 돼서 걱정을 많이 했는데 그나마 좀 꿀조에 속하는 편인 것 같아요. 스페셜한테 최근에 좀 져가지고 스페셜도 왠지 저한테 자신감이 있을 것 같고 저도 좀 걱정이 되네요. 뭔가 스페셜은 저한테 좀 저를 좀 무시하고 놀릴 것 같은데 저는 스페셜 인정해요. 잘하는 테란이고 할 만큼 해보세요. 네. 사실 미국에서 16강 할 줄 알았는데 안 하게 돼서 좀 아쉽지만 그래도 한국인들한테 좀 유리하다고 생각해요. 그 유리함 잘 살려서 꼭 8강 가도록 하겠습니다.
I feel good. I feel like I did well overall this year, but I'm obviously always want more. So I don't know. Hopefully this BlizzCon I can do better than what I expect. Because it's Simba. That's the actual only reason. I don't know. I think they're all hard. So I really don't care who I play, but I will try my best anyway. So at the end of the day, they're all good. So I have to beat 2 good players to advance anyway. So that's what's gonna happen. I hope. I beat him a lot of times too, so it's not fair to only look at one result when we play a lot of times. So I don't know. I think you see 50-50. I beat him, he beats me. We'll see. Like I really don't like looking stuff like that. I just think they're all good, so I don't know. They're all hard to me, so I really don't like to think someone's a god or someone's trash. I just play and he wins, he's better, this is I lose. I'm bored. Simple as that. I always prepare very hard for BlizzCon. I always do recently. Somewhat well. I did top 4 to top 8. So I'm expecting to at least get top 8 again. But it's gonna be rough, but I think I can do it. I've been practicing hard and I've been having good ideas, so we'll see. He beat me last BlizzCon, last time we played on BlizzCon. So I think it's my time to win in BlizzCon. I never beat him on BlizzCon. I beat him in other tournaments, but it's not as important as BlizzCon, so I want to beat him.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as we get into our second match here for Group A of the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series, round of 16 here at the Global Finals. I'm Nathanius, joined by Rotterdam, as we get into a very special Terran versus Zerg series, Kev.
Yeah, one with a lot of history. They've played against each other on the biggest stage already. I mean, these are two guys that are no strangers of making it out of these groups. Of course, soO has made it to the Grand Finals in 2017. And by doing that, he was able to actually triumph his opponent in the semifinals. His opponent that we're now going to take a look at.
And nice little banter as well in those interviews talking about it. We've got SpeCial over here. You know what? Always says exactly what he's thinking. It's like, well, I don't really care about putting anybody on a pedestal or thinking anyone's worse. I treat all the opponents as if they're equally worth the preparation. And well, he thinks Zerg is Zimba as well, Kevin. So we'll see how much those two balance each other out, whether it's an equal respect or he dislikes the matchup a little.
Yeah, it's funny because he has been very vocal about it, does not like TVZ. So I asked him this morning, I was like, what's the bigger problem? Is it the maps or is it Zerg? And he's like, both. Why you make me choose? I was like, well, I was like, if you gotta choose one, he's like, I can choose both. Both is the issue. I do believe that SpeCial absolutely has the skills to once again make it out of the group stage here in the Global Finals. He's done it 2 years in a row, which I think is an incredibly impressive performance and we don't often talk about. I do believe, however, that this is going to be harder than ever before because we are playing those best of 5s. And I really think best of 3 would have been a lot better for SpeCial.
Yeah, we're going to start this one on Acropolis. It's time to kick off soO versus SpeCial. In the bottom right, our first player here, the Korean Zerg in red.
Chivo, soO.
He faces off against our Mexican Terran player in the blue in the northwest.
Ocean Gaming, SpeCial.
I just want to bring a series up that happened in this very studio just a couple months ago during GSL vs. The World, where SpeCial was actually able to eliminate Reigner of the tournament. The same Reigner that has eliminated SpeCial in a couple of the other tournaments in the WCS circuit. So I asked him as well, it's like, you know, what do you think is the biggest difference here? And he's just like, it's all about preparation. He loves being able to prepare for a series. He genuinely believes that he's a much better player if he has more time. Like, he doesn't just want to play one series and then immediately hop into a different different matchup, different series, different opponent. He has known that he's opened up against soO for quite some time now, so SpeCial did have that time to prepare. And let's see if that's going to help him once again in the best of fives.
Some young soO fans in the crowd. Thanks for coming out, everybody. And yeah, I mean, you talk about preparation, and I completely agree with you. When you think about what has made some of the Terran players successful, there's always this discussion, and I have a lot of thoughts on it myself about like Maru, right? Like, why is the success so much more in the tournaments with the preparation? Seems to be very good for the Terrans, and we're not at this point yet, but I did hear a rumor about a strategy that we might see from SpeCial in this series that I'm personally very excited about, and I'm wondering just how many crazy builds he might have for an opponent like soO. I think that's the biggest strength of Terran in this matchup, is that you have so many different openers, whether it's with Banshees, Hellions, Hellbats, Battle Cruisers. You see almost everything in a long series like this when it comes to TVZ.
Yeah, what I'm a tiny bit worried about for SpeCial is that, like I said, in the past, the previous years at the Global Finals, he would show up, have an amazing build for one specific map, do it once, do it twice, but that's the only time you can really bust it out. Now, in a best of 5, you're going to have to play at least 3 maps, if not even 4 or 5, if your opponent takes a couple as well. And I'm just kind of afraid for Juanito that he's going to run out of unique builds eventually. And I do believe that was always his strength, at this tournament in particular, showing up with stuff that even if it looks the same, at the highest level in StarCraft 2, you know, you can't always just be like, oh, he ends up with Marines and Medevacs and tanks. What's so special about it? But it's all the different ways of being able to get there and trying to get an economic head start. And even if he busts out all the special builds here already, he's going to have to go up against Dark afterwards. So, like, do you then have new unique builds? And what if you lose that one and you end up going up against soO again, right? Like, only how many times, Nate, can you have unique builds as a Terran player?
Yeah, you really want to just keep the Zerg player guessing, right? Like, when you do a Hellion opening, the Zerg is already going to be thinking about, okay, well, there's a certain number of strategies that could be coming up. And what's interesting here is that this Zergling sees something that should tell soO something is weird. Because 2 Hellions came out, and you're like, okay, well, that's normal. But then the Zergling saw that it was put straight onto the reactor, the barracks again. And we see the fusion core and 2 more gases being taken. I'm just going to give a shout out to Showtime, because he totally told me that this is what was going to happen. But it's going to be Battle Cruisers, Kev. And I think that this strategy is not something that has had like crazy huge like percentages as far as like winning games early on, but it has that ability to like kind of do this guaranteed pressure where the Zerg has to react to it. You know, you can't just deflect it with Queens and a Spore like you would against like Banshees or an early Liberator. But the Battle Cruiser itself, like, you have to respect it. And that is going to start up, but Overlord speed is done. So soO trying to get in with that scout to see what's happening.
And this is quite a common opening, though, in the matchup these days, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh,
the second starport is what I was waiting for. I thought it was a little bit late, but it's not going to time out where you just warp in the 2 at once. But the goal here is basically to try and deny a Spire and then just snowball an insane amount of BCs.
Crazy.
If you don't get a Spire out quickly against this build and you're not doing some sort of all-in, like, he's very vulnerable right now. He only has a handful of Marines and 2 Hellions.
Exactly, but how likely is it that SpeCial's able to avoid this Overlord from scouting the second Stargate or Starport route?
I'm not sure that it's the biggest deal anymore, just because the lair is not done. So if there was a Spire, if he went straight for a Spire, Battlecruiser is guaranteed to be able to get to it, right? Like, if he just scans him, he's like, okay, I'm going to try and click on that. So he will have the BC in his base before the lair is done, which means he should always be able to retreat with the Battlecruiser. And now that he has the extra one coming in, as long as he's on top of where Spire's being built, he's got a lot of pressure potential with this strategy.
I actually kind of like it. The first Battlecruiser jumps to the other side of the map, and it seems like soO is not in the right place, because that was a single queen only, so this is a very nice start, I think, for SpeCial.
Yes, it's already very nice. Think about it this way. There's also no creep connecting the bases, right? So this Battlecruiser can chase a lot of these down, put on this pressure, bring all the other queens over, but you're going for 2 at a time. You need Corruptors to deal with this. Like, you're going to have 3 BCs putting on pressure very soon. Now the Overlord sees the second starport, and this is one of those builds that if you are not 100% ready for it, it's so hard to defend against this build.
Yep, especially because he also made a couple of roaches that are not going to be super useful. Now the economy of soO is very good. There is the Spire. The Hellion spots it immediately, so that's going to be quite nice as well.
You warp in your next BC straight there.
Do you feel like when it's 3 BC time, is that like the goal time moment for SpeCial where he really wants to get insane damage? Because, yeah, this first BC was cute and all, but it's safe to say that he needs a lot more than what he got so far.
Well, I tell you what, this is one of those few times I can say I have been in this situation quite a bit. And once you get to that, I think even just 2 battle cruisers can push back a lot of queens. The number to deal with 2 is something like 12 queens, basically, before they can just start with that damage they do against ground is insane. But if he gets all 3 battle cruisers together, well, you're going to have a blast fighting against queens. You right-click on that Spire. It is super dead, Kev. And now it's just queens trying to fight against 3 battle cruisers, but there's 2 more on the way.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy. We'll see. It's going to be very important to keep these BCs alive. Of course, a lot of mules have been dropped. Economically, SpeCial is still quite far behind, so he needs to get insane damage. 7 drones is good. Every queen, I think, is super important because obviously queens get better over time. The more energy they gather as well.
Oh, I'd go for the lair here for SpeCial. If he can't build the Spire, then there is nothing that he can do. So
we got Yamato as well, right?
Yeah,
still Yamato.
Yeah, I don't think he's burned his cooldown on it. So
I don't think
he's got access to that. Another Spire starts up, but yeah, focus down the lair. You're gonna force all the queens to come up. That Spore is trying to reposition. He's like, all right, I'm just gonna cruise over you, blow a lot of these to pieces. Might lose one of the battle cruisers here, unfortunately, but there's 2 more. And I think he should be able to bring over. He's maybe a little bit worried about roaches. He should see that next Spire that's being morphed as well.
And again, on top of that one again, SpeCial's obviously.
There you go. He's got the bunker for the naked Marines
wow.
to defend. What are you going to do?
If 4 and 5 show up as well, I mean, the queen count is definitely nowhere near it's supposed to be. That Spire doesn't even get cancelled anymore. soO's in a lot of trouble. And SpeCial, once again, with one of these crazy builds, there is not a Yamato, by the way. I think the queen count is pretty much non-existent at this point, right?
Yep. He's going to drop the mules to repair that weak battle cruiser. And always the weakness of this type of strategy is that early attack, or in this situation, it's going to be these like Ravagers and Roaches. Like, all right, I'm just going to try and buy all this down. You're not going to get the repair off in time. And he is going to deal economic damage back to him while he waits for the battle cruiser to finish the next wave. And he's also getting a siege tank as well. But there's nothing here that can kill the BCs without getting into Corruptors, really. Well, I guess if he doesn't pull them back like that, then he can get a lot of work done.
One more queen does go down, but losing a BC is quite painful. We do have a safety tank, and the tanks in the Marines should be enough here for now to keep SpeCial safe a little bit longer. But this has been painful because he has lost 11 SCVs, so he needs to get even more damage done on the other side of the map.
Yeah.
And soO is trying the old school approach of just rallying everything to the other side of the map.
I'm starting to get nervous though, because the Spire is going to finish. The most important part of what you're doing when you're playing this type of style, especially with how weak these BCs are, because he yeets them straight in, so he can't actually tactical jump out. And we are going to have Corruptors coming. There's going to be enough resources to build a good few of them, so SpeCial needs to be very, very careful about what his next moves are going to be.
Yeah, these spores have been doing a lot of damage on these BCs, but we still have 4 of them. But obviously, tactical jump is going to be on cooldown for a couple of them. Maybe if we can get that 4th hatch as well and then get out of there. There's 2 queens here, but 2 queens shouldn't be enough to save the day. I wouldn't want to see him lose more BCs though.
You really don't want to lose any more of this. And in this situation, dropping the mules is not a bad play because everything is so hamstringed by the gas that keeping the battle cruiser alive even for a few more seconds to get that tactical jump is so important.
Needs to get the hatchery and probably needs to get out of there with all the BCs that can. I don't know how many of them can jump at this point. It seems like the first one wasn't able to, so another BC goes down.
Cooldown.
It's been a lot of battle cruisers that have gone down this game, Nate.
Yeah, I'm not feeling as great about this anymore. Like, the opportunity, the initial catch was really good, but I think soO did a really nice job of pulling those BCs back and forth, side to side. Probably the best thing he could do in this situation is we see the 4 extra barracks starting, so he's going to go into bio out of this sense. If you try to play mech in this situation, they just make Corruptors, kill your BCs. BCs are really bad defensively, and then, well, you're not going to have anything anti-air-wise to actually deal with caustic spray.
And there's not a single upgrade yet for the Marines, right? That's the biggest problem. If Stim was ready at this point, you'd be like, ah, then it's actually a lot easier to just push units away, maybe find some more damage on the other side of the map. Getting those 2 hatcheries, I think, was fantastic in the end, and is absolutely what will keep SpeCial in this game. But it also feels that he loses a lot of momentum now, right? He loses all the steam, and at this point, he's just gonna have to be patient.
I will say that the side piece to this that is nice is Corruptors are really expensive, and for him to have so many of them, oftentimes a Zerg player will get into like a sort of rage. You know, you see the the flag being waved and you want to charge at it, but going into bio out of this is really good because those Corruptors, the only thing you can do is basically go into Broodlords for late game against that, which is not what you're focused on because there's still 4 battle cruisers alive. Like, he can still go Yamato 4 Corruptors every wave and then just teleport back home. So he can do that harass even though his stim is late. So it's not all lost. I think this is one of those scenarios where, based on the builds, I thought that SpeCial had a chance to kill soO very early. So for him, it's about as good as it could have been, really.
Yeah, definitely playable from the economic point of view as well, since, I mean, 8 work is down while you have 3 orbital commands and the 4th base is building for SpeCial as well. That's definitely not all that bad. And then even if soO's supply is gonna skyrocket soon, because he's been building a lot of roaches with 1-1 upgrades, those are just roaches, right? And roaches, we all know, do eventually fall off. It's important not to lose any BCs here, and one of them does go down, so that's rough. A bit sloppy, but...
Yeah, the interesting thing about this is the roaches against mech, like, maybe there's weird opportunities, right? Because if he goes Cyclones, if he does this, if he doesn't have tanks, but Marines, like, Marines are going to be pretty good at defending against this type of army with the tank support as well, especially. So those battle cruisers are... You really can't afford to lose them at this point because they're the only thing that's keeping soO on the defensive.
I must say, it's going to be hard for soO to find good openings though, right, with his roaches. Like, obviously, these fights are going to be off-creep. The Baneling nest only now has been slapped down, so it's going to take a long time before Baneling speed is done. It's like, okay, maybe if he can attack somewhere where the tanks are not covering the Marines and the micro is poor, but SpeCial's army has a lot of potential here, because soO's army, like, it looks big, but it's really not that powerful.
Yeah, it's very smart of SpeCial to have gone into bio out of this, mostly because a lot of Zerg players will be like, oh, I just build Corruptors, and then they're good versus mech too, but he's in this awkward spot where, like, Roach Ravager is not going to attack into that. So the Terran player gets a very nicely, like, relative to the state of the game, very nicely timed 4th base, and he's looked like he's going to gear up for, like, probably a pretty big 2-2, like, Marine tank push.
Yeah, the armory was a tiny bit late, but he can start those 2-2 upgrades at this point. I think SpeCial's going to take a look at this army in the middle of the map and be like, well, that actually doesn't look that scary. It doesn't look that intimidating. Of course, there is always going to be more when you go up against world-class Zerg players like soO, but I think it's a very playable game for our Mexican back-to-back playoff, global finals playoffs player.
And let's not forget, he still has battle cruisers. This army, though, in the middle of the map could get dangerous to bring the tanks out like this. Corruptors are going to actually go for the medevac, so they have to run away. They cannot heal these forces, and the tanks get completely swallowed up. I think a bit preemptive of a move out for SpeCial, considering the lack of those 2-2 upgrades that we were talking about, Kev. But also against Roach Ravager, you kind of want to get past that 160, 170 supply mark before you actually try to push.
It's really funny how those bio armies work right against roaches, but at one point it just feels like all of the roaches melt before they even get in range. But it felt that SpeCial's army was actually, or could have been, a lot bigger than what he truly had there in the middle of the map. That wasn't everything. He left a lot of forces at home, and the BCs were not there either, which can be somewhat useful as well to at least soak up some damage. The medevacs don't go down immediately. Yeah, it felt like he got a little ahead of himself there.
And now there's an opportunity for soO. This army is pretty big. We've got without creep spread, like, Baneling speed is about to finish up, so go for the softer third since it's not where the planetary is, perhaps, but we've got something. His whole army is actually coming over to deal with this drop. And then you remember why bio is good in these situations versus Zerg too.
Yeah, and roaches are not that nice to deal with medevacs. Obviously, the Corruptors can start chasing them around. But all of this is quite good for SpeCial because he just lost a lot of units in the middle of the map, so he wants to rebuild and get a slightly bigger army again. Those 2-2 upgrades you were mentioning, well, they're getting close to finishing up. So the next fight, it feels like there's a lot more potential because +2 missile attacks was never started for soO. So he's going to have an upgrade advantage as well.
He's got the tanks line sieged up behind, so he wants to bait the Zerg army into this, but unsieges everything, and he's going to retreat from this position. This is why those tanks are so tricky to use. Really good with the changelings responding to that army, but the battle cruisers at the same time trying to go to the north side. Corruptors get one of them. He's going to drop the Yamatos now. Gets 2, teleports out. Bleeding these BCs out, super risky, but when you are soO in this situation, you have to keep that Corruptor count up. But now he's going to go for the Greater Spire. So finally they get that extra value. Yes, you open with a bunch of those Corruptors that can't do too much, but now they're going to become that end game army that says, hey, you've got siege tanks? Well, nice. Nice for me.
Yeah, obviously once the Broodlords are out, tanks are not going to be that impactful anymore. It does really feel that SpeCial has missed an opportunity or two to get some more value out of those bio units right in the middle of the map. I feel both times he moved out with an army that wasn't the real army, that wasn't his final form. And he made it actually somewhat of an easy fight for soO, while I think it should have been a lot harder for soO to get good fights there, especially with the upgrades. that soO had as well, which were not that impressive.
Yeah, this whole situation just gets really awkward because trying to move out with siege tanks against Zerg in this meta, like you see a lot of like the Drilling Claw Widowmine plays for just the sustained move outs, but if you're gonna bring those tanks, they have to be executed and controlled perfectly. These BCs are not on cooldown, by the way, so both of them should die pretty easily. And this is gonna buy a little bit of time to pick off this southeast base. This position is nice with the tanks before Broodlords, though.
Yep, that's super nice. I mean, that Great Aspire is done, as we're getting another base up on the top side of the map as well. That planetary is not done yet, but it should finish up in time. We'll see if the tanks can get some final value. I mean, if SpeCial would be able to take out one more base, he's actually going to evacuate this position, sort of, and he's going to drop the main base. Where's that Great Aspire these days, Nate?
I believe that Spire was over by, like, it was almost like been tucked in the back of the main or somewhere. It wasn't by that natural area where he was fighting earlier, I don't think.
It got cancelled there.
Yeah, Hive is still hurt from the earlier phase of the game, so possible pickoffs there. We see the Marines sprinting over towards the north side as well. Baneling Nest possibly at risk there. This is all really important because he doesn't actually have anything that can deal with the
Hive is down. The Hive went down, so that's a massive pickoff, of course. That hatchery on the top side of the map goes down as well. So SpeCial's finally finding the damage that he's been looking for quite some time. What I'm curious about is where's that Spire? And when are we going to see Broodlords? Because soO has money. There we go. Yeah.
The one thing I was going to say is we don't see, I didn't see a Ghost Academy at any point. No, I think he has a second starport because he was building 3 medevacs at a time at some point. But that is, well, there's no Infestors. So actually, I don't think if he could get a lot of Vikings, there's no Infestors or Vipers. And now the Hive is dead, right? So he can't actually get those units. Building Vikings wouldn't even be the worst thing to do in this situation.
And economically right now, it's suddenly really sick for SpeCial because he's got a 5-base economy and he's been picking up hatcheries left, right, and center. The main is gone. He was able to get a hatch on the top side of the map. So soO right now is going to get aggressive with his brutes, and there is still a little bit of money in the bank for our Zerg, but not enough to lose 6 or 7 Broodlords and still be okay in this game.
Yeah, the rest of the siege are going to come in from the north side. You can clear the creep tumors out of here, but there are the Broodlords, and now SpeCial sees that, but he's got 5 Vikings being built at a time. Was the spawning pool killed as well? He's rebuilding that, so he can't get a lair. Oh my god, well, he's been set back to the Stone Age as far as tech goes. I've got all my comments I've said about Vikings over the years, Kev, but in this situation, that is exactly what he needs. There is nothing that can actually deal with them, and as long as he can overwhelm that Air Force, he's got this in the bag. So much economy. He's taken so many bases during all of this, too.
Yeah, every Corruptor kill would be super useful here for SpeCial because it's not easy to rebuild them, obviously. It's going to take a little while before they show up. The Corruptors, I think they were looking for a Viking or 2 if he's banking up Vikings already. 1 planetary fortress is going to fall here. The first Vikings will show up. I think it's important for SpeCial not to engage too early though, right? Because he can still lose this Viking force.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Vikings are slower than those Corruptors, so they can chase up to them. Kiting doesn't really work unless you have a good amount to start one-shotting those Corruptors. But this is where he's able to make that slow army punished as well with the drops to punish those Broodlords being across the map.
This game is actually so close, even though it looks like soO is still maxed out and obviously he's got a little bit of money in the bank, but if he loses all the Broodlords, this is a completely different game. So the fight here between the Vikings and the Corruptors is super important, but I must say soO is handling this incredibly well.
Yeah, the hardest thing about this is that there's not really an option to go into any other tech. The lair has only just started again, so it really was all about making the most of these Broodlords and Corruptors as they were now. And yes, those 2 top bases were killed, but he did secure a southwest expansion. He's not completely out of this economically, and I think we're going to see him float. Yeah, he's floating the main over to a different base too. This is still a massive army.
Yep, SpeCial's feeling confident. We don't have too many Banelings in the mix here. I see a couple of Banelings trying to roll forward. It's mostly about the Broodlords and the Corruptors though. That's the main strength of this Zerg army.
Yeah, these Vikings have been having a bit of a rough time, though. The Corruptors have been coming out fast enough to thin that count. And at the end of the day, when you're trading the Vikings for the Corruptors, the Broodlords are still chilling and whacking away at that ground army, making those siege tanks very hard to generate value from. So he needs to hold on to this base, but it's so difficult.
Yeah, that is going to be very difficult. It's not a planetary fortress this time either.
Those medevacs are all out of energy, too. Like, all of his Marines are at orange health now after this stim. Unfortunately.
Russell is going to push these Marines back a little bit further, and it seems like soO has finally done it as the last Vikings are going to fall. These Marines are in a lot of trouble as well, and the Broodlords, I mean, they're just out of range, right? There is nothing that can get close to these brutes now. It felt that SpeCial maybe had an opportunity, instead of fighting with like 4 or 5 Vikings over and over again, just try to pocket them a little bit, like a tiny bit longer, and then actually have enough Vikings to kill those Corruptors. It felt like maybe there was a chance there. He's still fighting on the other side of the map with a squad of Marines and 1 medevac. But what's going to stop this Zerg army?
Yeah, the other ace play here has just been the use of the corrosive vials too. Like the Marines have had to stim and run out of those shots, when normally one of the things that you would try to do in this situation is get rid of the Banelings and just run underneath the Broodlords and just try to focus them all down. There's just too many Ravagers, too many vials, and the Marines can't be healed because the medevacs are out of energy or the Corruptors just keep killing them.
Corrosive Vials are going to land on top of the Marines, and it seems like soO has done it. He will take a 1-0 lead here in the second match of Group A. WCS Global Finals 2019.
Yeah, and that's one of those games where quite a few small things here and there could have had big impacts. There was a chance to kill the lair super early on. In fact, one of the maybe 5th or 6th time he went into the bottom side of the base, the BCs again when he had the 3. I think he might have been able to grab it there. Delayed attack, because when you force out those Corruptors, it's great. Like, they are not really generating value for soO until he can turn them into Broodlords. Like, yeah, they push the BCs away, but I mean, SpeCial did a really good job setting himself up, but got blindsided badly by those Broodlords. And I mean, a Ghost Academy snuck in there, does a lot for you. Getting the extra starports a little bit earlier, but the first time that he saw that there were Broodlords, like, he was losing his army in the middle of the map to him.
Yeah. It also felt that maybe he spent a little too much time hovering above Spore Crawlers early on, right, with the BCs. It felt
I think the BC control could have been a lot cleaner.
Yeah, I think it could have been a bit better. I think we have seen better out of SpeCial as well. And I do believe that those Spores, they've added so much additional DPS in those fights, then it suddenly made it a little bit more doable for Queens to gather the courage. And it's like, yeah, now we can fight. Well, if those BCs would have been full on HP, I don't think it would have been that easy.
All right, it's time to jump into game number 2 as soO leads 1-0 over SpeCial. In the top left, we have the Red Zerg player leading 1-0.
Chivo, soO.
He faces our Blue Terror player in the southeast, trying to make it work with those battle cruisers.
Ocean Gaming, SpeCial.
Of course, the winner of this match will move on to play against Dark, while the loser of this match will go up against Showtime and then play against the loser of the match between Dark and soO. A lot of things still possible in this group. Dark winning his opening match was not a surprise to most of us, but I do think a lot of people were surprised by how damn close that series was. Leaves plenty to talk about as well. I always love seeing like the immediate discussions on Twitter, you know, about what could have been. And that's, of course, the way we want to see it here as well. These games matter. And I'm always like, I'm just generally impressed by most of these guys, that they can sit on the stage like this, play for that amount of money, play for this amount of glory, and still make mostly right decisions, right? It's so freaking hard. I can play a little tournament game at home and I'll be shaking in my boots like, oh, it's so different than ladder.
It's such an awesome moment when we get to this stage of the tournament, and this is it, right? If you want to be the best, this is the moment to really stake that claim. And I thought we were talking about how Showtime was saying earlier, he's like, well, it doesn't really matter how your points, the rest of the year, once you're here, you know, it's a whole new season when you get to the playoffs. And we're seeing a lot. We're seeing everybody bring out everything that they've got. And I think that first match really signified it. And just already the back and forth in the first game of this series was something else. And I'm curious if SpeCial has any other odd strategies he's going to try to mix up into this matchup. Him putting his factory away from the barracks already tells me that this could be like a 2-1-1 or some other sort of weird build, like a fast Banshee maybe even. I'm not sure.
Yeah, looking forward to it as well. SpeCial's definitely a player who lives for these kind of tournaments, lives for these moments. Already said it a couple of times, but can he do it? Can he make it out of the group here at the Global Finals 3 years in a row? Be truly spectacular. I'm pretty damn sure that he'd be the only one, right, to make it into the playoffs for 3 years in a row. I don't think anybody else has done that.
Kevin, I think you're the only caster smart enough to know that at the back of their head, so I'm just going to agree with you.
Just can't imagine that happening. Maybe, I guess, if... I don't know. We'll double check that for you guys, but it's quite a rare feat.
He's building another reactor, by the way. So this could be like... Is this that weird? He did something like this before, right? Was it like Viking Hellion? I feel like we've seen something very weird from him before that was like this, where he did the fast reactor with the starport. Because there's very, very, very few double reactor builds that you would do off of a 1-1-1 against Zerg. Could be
Maybe it's
Hellbat
just a
with
lot
lots
of
medevacs.
Maybe it's just a lot of Hellions and then a one medevac opener.
It could be Hellion or like a Hellbat Marine push too. With most of those attacks, you start the armory when like your slowest units move out, and then you're generally going to be able to turn Hellbats
Double
at that
medevac.
moment. Double medevac.
Oh, I think it's maybe like a very fast 60 Marine opener, but then also having a couple of Hellions somewhere. He has done something similar like this for sure.
It's just odd to do this without going for like stem or something, right? You're like, I'm going to have really fast Marine medevac, but
then go into mech. Like you open up with 16 Marines, and then he actually goes into mech.
This is big brain right there, Kevin.
Yeah, I think I've seen him do this. And actually, because like I think Utermo actually did a build like this, very similar. Which is like, you know, you're surprised as Zerg when you show up, or when you get hit by this amount of Marines this early on. You're like, wait a minute, what am I going up against? And then suddenly it's actually transitioning into mech. I must say, this little link run by is very nice, because it's also a massive scout here for soO. He spots everything he needed to know.
And that definitely could be this weird thing. Now, the Overlord was able to get in and scout a bit. The thing that surprised me, though, right, if you're looking at this as soO, it still doesn't really make a tremendous amount of sense, and I feel like if you see that it's just one barracks with this, you can't really write off the possibility of it still being a mech build. So that illusion he may be trying to paint may not be as clear or as well done as he was hoping for originally.
I must say the lost time by SpeCial, by having to turn around and take care of those links running into his natural, I think it really hurts. Because soO was already up to 51 drones. I think that this attack would have been a solid 15 seconds quicker, and it really does make all the difference, because then suddenly those links are not out yet. The extra links, they're definitely not in position either to defend. So it really feels that SpeCial having to turn around there for those links, it feels like it completely messed up his build. And he is indeed adding additional factories, and we see Hellions on the way, but that Widowmine is not going to fire. I don't think this is working out in the way it was intended, Nate.
No, just those handful of lings early on. soO basically did like a little gut check. He's like, oh, I'm just going to throw a small punch. He's like, oh, wow, there's nothing here because you loaded everything into medevacs. And yeah, you think you said it best, because he's been squeezing out extra queens. You get that extra time to get the larva going for those Zerglings that are patrolling in the main base. And the third is set up nicely. And at the end of the day, they're just naked Marines with a couple of medevacs.
Yep.
So they're not doing anything tremendous unless you completely blindside the Zerg player. The Hellions could still be nice, though, without Banelings to support. A couple of good splashes, and these Marines do have solid normal DPS.
Yeah, the medevac still helping out a little bit there as well. Suddenly it's just queens here for soO. So soO's finally going to end up losing a couple of drones. This is exactly what SpeCial was looking for, and he's getting more than perhaps he was even looking for, because those Marines are surviving for a very long time. 17 drones went down.
It's getting hot in here, Roddy. He's lining them drones up hard. 18 drones killed. The Liberator as well got 5 during all of that. So 19 workers picked off in total. Double Armory is finishing. And all of a sudden, this crazy amount of what's going on over here with SpeCial, at the end of it, we're like, okay, this looks pretty good. The Spire is going to finish. We talk about limited anti-air when you're playing mech builds versus Zerg. I'm very curious to see what he does with this Spire once it's done, because if he goes straight into mutas, a couple of Cyclones and Liberators can actually kind of push that back. So I'm mostly just wondering, because like on the ground there won't be a tremendous amount to deal with Lings either.
Isn't it funny how that worked? Because it felt that like SpeCial was looking for damage and he wasn't getting it, and he wasn't getting it, and it feels like every second that goes by, it's less and less likely that he's gonna get the damage that he's looking for. And then suddenly, when you almost don't even believe in the opening anymore, it's a rather poor Ling engagement, I guess, by soO, but also really good micro on the side of SpeCial. And suddenly SpeCial gets the world. He gets everything.
Good scan, sees the Spire tech. And we're going to have a couple of missile turrets start up. But the Zergling drop, this is something you don't see a tremendous amount of against Terran. And getting already a few SCVs, this is one of those things you have to be very careful about, too. If they're able to pick off the SCV building that turret, you want to make sure that finishes. Liberators against mutas with no upgrades will do okay, especially in like the lower accounts. That splash damage isn't too great, but if you have a turret you can fall back onto, or a Cyclone. Cyclones actually trade pretty well versus mutas in low numbers.
Yep. They can just lock on, they can micro a little bit, right? Stay out of range. Obviously, mutas need to get right on top of the Cyclone. Cyclone can stay at a distance. We'll see if these first mutas are able to get some damage here.
Yeah, this is really nice. That lock on does a good bit of damage.
Kind of trapped here now. Liberator's going to chase it down as well. This is going to be really awkward. Don't forget, the Liberators can just go back to that missile turret. One meter goes down, the second one should absolutely go down as well. This one's so low on HP.
This is ace right here, man. That is about as much as you can hope for. You've completely stunted the Mutalisk play. I think the only thing to consider would be whether the Zerg is going quickly into a lot of Roaches. Sometimes that's the back and forth. We have some Ravagers on the way. I think Roach Speed was already researched. And Magfield Accelerator is not done yet. So he might just be hoping that with Creep Spread and like some Ling Ravager Roach, he can keep the Battle Mech part of it away and force this game to go longer.
I mean, soO with his 85 drone economy is looking mighty fine in that department. Definitely bounced back after losing those drones earlier on. So it's up to SpeCial to, once again, try to find an opening, do some damage, or at least get some good trades somewhere. Because if you don't do anything... I mean, SpeCial's got a good economy as well, but it's always terrifying to see a Zerg with over 80 workers. But we do get that Hellion drop in the main base, and it's already getting some decent damage. 5 drones is nice. A little bit of lost mining time as well.
Yeah, and there's scouting information made there as well. Multiple starports being added, as well as a fusion core. So could be SpeCial thinking about, I mean, Hellion Cyclone Battlecruiser is actually a really fun, powerful style that he's made pretty good use of. But I feel like so many Zerg players, we just don't really see that BC be effective in the longer game. Like they've gotten quite good at handling it. Could also be for ranged Liberators as well to support those Cyclones from a distance.
98 workers, I guess he's going to make some static defenses, but 98 feels a little extreme to me. I'm a big fan of big economies, Nate, but 98? I mean...
Drones around the world.
I guess getting a couple of spores and spines here and there will be nice. Like, soO has been spending, has been floating quite some money, as these Midas do get locked up on. And the Roaches and Ravages need to save the day for now. But I feel like it's absolutely on purpose that soO is floating this money. He's waiting for that Great Aspire to finish up, and he doesn't want to just max out on Roaches if there's no reason for him to do so. He's like, well, I'm not going to fight off creep. I'm not going to put my tournament, or not going to put like this game on the line with one attack. So he's just keeping a little bit of a bank, and he doesn't really want to spend money on units he doesn't truly need once he gets those Broodlords out.
All right, well, some Hellbats from that drop getting into the main base, doing a little bit of damage. I think some of the army kind of poking around in that south central area, but it's 3 battlecruisers being made at once, and he has that +1 ship weapons finishing up soon. So just trying to buy time for the BC transition. But Corruptors are already coming out, Roddy.
I must say the working count on both sides is insane. 95 against 94 workers. I know SpeCial, obviously a big fan of TY, known as a Terran player who likes to build a lot of SCVs and never really stops building them. But this feels like the armies are going to be quite small when the worker counts are this massive.
If he can pocket like 6 or 7 battlecruisers, and then the Broodlords show up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're not going BCs this game. I'm fine. I don't need to have a big Corruptor escort." Yeah. Then this could get ugly really fast. Those battlecruisers could Yamato down the Broodlords and pave the way for the ground army to move out and get some serious work done. Because soO's got all these workers, but it's not like he's completely consumed the map. Like SpeCial's been able to stay on par with that economy, as you were just saying. He's got so many workers of his own.
Yeah, he actually has a worker lead at this point. As these Hellions are going to get taken out, but once again, soO is not really scouting. soO hasn't been in the main base for quite some time. Now we do see an Overseer morphing. I'm not exactly sure where that is, but it would be very useful for our Zerg to get a little sneak peek in the main base of SpeCial. Because if he doesn't have any anti-air though, I mean, then those Broodlords are going to be useless, because Broodlords can't fight battlecruisers.
No, they cannot. Very nice that he got the ship weapons early on. I would have hoped to see him get +2
really
ship.
Good. Oh, that's so good by SpeCial, denying that Overseer from getting into the main base.
You do not want him to know you're building battlecruisers, because I think the Corruptor count is still almost nothing. Like, he hasn't been thinking about it. He's getting 2 right now, but
he's got no supply anyway. He's
I think there's already
out.
6. Are there already 6 battlecruisers? Is he going for
no, those are 4, 5, and 6 as far as I know.
Say once you get up to, if you can get 6 BCs without there being like 14 or so Corruptors, you are going to be able to do a lot against this army. Because the one thing as well that we didn't see from soO in the last game, not really a focus on Vipers or Infestors, which are going to be like your real apex predators of the BC. Otherwise, they can always teleport out.
I mean, I think soO is one of the greatest Zerg players of all time, but he has never really struck me as a guy that's fantastic with spellcasters, right? Of course, he will make an Infestor when he truly has to. Another denied Overseer. Okay, maybe it caught the glimpse there of the BCs, but I have to be honest, Nate, when you said if you can get up to 6 BCs without it being scouted is really good, I'm like, how's that ever going to happen? Well, we're almost there. These tanks are a little bit exposed, so the tanks will fall. But is there enough free supply for soO? Actually, a couple of Roaches going down there was a good thing for soO.
He's going to yeet onto these Broodlords, and I feel like this is definitely a little bit bit gung-ho from him. We've got 10 Corruptors on the way, and those BCs,
18.
they need, oh yeah, now up to 18. They need a retreat path as those Biles start to hit them. Now you do want to make sure you get rid of all of the Broodlords with this army so that your Cyclones, your Hellions, because theoretically, if he gets rid of all the Broodlords and he falls back to Cyclones, the Cyclones will keep the Corruptors from actually getting up onto him. But you need to be very careful with that control. Instead, he chooses to lock on all the Cyclones to this hatchery, so he'll be able to pick that off pretty easily, but you really need to be delicate with those BCs. He sent them straight home. I think that's really important. Losing that many battlecruisers at this stage of the game, well, he'd just be super dead.
Yeah, he's going to build 3 more, so we're basically going to end up with an absolutely insane amount of BCs. You see the barracks being rebuilt now as well. I guess he ended up losing his scouting barracks in the middle of the map somewhere.
Man in the missile turret's going to get paid some overtime kev. He's queuing up quite a bit of those. He's like, well, I just need the anchor point so that you can't just bull rush me with Corruptors.
How many Corruptors do we have out right now? Because he was building 18 at a certain point. I mean, soO's economy is massive, and I think that soO kind of likes these kind of games a little bit more scrappy, because once again, I don't feel that he's necessarily the best Zerg when it comes to Infestors and Vipers, but I do think he really likes going like eye for an eye, toe for a toe. It's like you kill my base, I kill yours, and we just kind of keep going back and forth. As long as he keeps the game simple. Yeah. I mean, it's just, look at the army of SpeCial right now. What a weird tap. It's 9 BCs.
All he needs to do is kill the... Okay, well, he's got too many SCVs, I'll say that much. But if he kills the Broodlords and he has the turrets to fall back to, the Corruptors can't do too much. So now, without Infestors, without Vipers, like, Abduct will cancel Yamato, and you can't teleport while being abducted. And Fungal Growth, you can't teleport while you're doing it. And of course, you know, Neural Parasite is very strong. But even if you have 1 million Corruptors, he's going to be able to teleport back behind the turrets. And, well, you can't build 1 million Corruptors. So the turrets will actually be able to push it away at some point when you build enough of them.
I must say I find it weird that soO doesn't have that much gas, considering the fact that it feels like he's been so rich forever, and he's super rich in the minerals. Gas-wise, he's starving a little bit more, even though he hasn't really been building any of those spellcasters yet. SpeCial's going to try to keep up the pressure, find a few more drones here and there. This may not seem like much, but over time, this does really add up. And even though the banks look big, you're like, wow, soO's so rich, 3.3k, 900 gas. That's gone in no time. Like, if one bad fight, you can't even rebuild your army. So these little Hellion run-bys, they do really add up over time and are absolutely worth it.
I'm so happy. I love the Hellion run-by, but he's going into Ghosts, Roddy, and those, when you're kind of running around with air forces like this, really good caustic spray onto this planetary. Cleaning up this base is extremely important in this phase of the game. But Ghosts are fantastic in these situations. The snipe is going to be so useful against these units, and I'll just say it. Ghosts are probably one of the best units you have versus Zerg. If you can get a large number of them, doesn't matter if you're playing Bio Mech, you are going to have a lot of bullying power. 35 Corruptors on the map.
He's basically building pure Corruptors. These Ravagers finding a lot of SVs. That is quite nice for soO. On the other end, for SpeCial, may not be the worst thing in the world, because it's going to make his army a little bit bigger. We do have 2 Tors out on the map now as well. So these Tors are going to get a couple of shots up. They might actually get a Broodlord die. Yes, they do.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to be able to get that. I'm not really sure.
Oh, look how stacked up they are. The Liberator's getting some good shots off.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that we're seeing this much damage. He never got actually any Carapace upgrades for the air. And I just saw Liberators with +2 actually deal damage to Corruptors. This is amazing.
I mean, 35 Corruptors stacked
and then
up.
The Ghosts. Yeah, well, if you stack them. The Libs having +2 is really nice. I think that's a really important thing that soO might not have, like, maybe lost sight of that, because the Carapace upgrades are amazing versus the Battlecruisers alone, right? But opening the door for Liberators to get that much damage in, that's something that shouldn't happen, and that was amazing for SpeCial. I really like his position now.
That was a dream fight. I don't think he could have really asked much more than that.
You can't ask for much more than that.
The Broodlords even went down to those Tors. I mean, the Tors were able to take out both Broodlords, but then 35 Corruptors, which is an insane count, and can basically one-shot everything, obviously, for quite some time. Liberators, their damage may not seem that impactful, but if all of these units are clumped up, a lot of a little is still a lot, Nate.
If the Liberator is only doing 2 damage a hit, and you have 35 Corruptors stacked, well, 70 damage per hit to a whole army is amazing when it's 5 of those Liberators shooting at a time. Some Lings are going to be able to run over here, which should be nice. I don't think the Ghosts are going to come over and try to defend against this. I don't think he has Cloak, so one is going to die. But having even just any Ghost of support like that against the Corruptors is going to be amazing.
Now we do finally have 2 Vipers out on the map. These are the very first spellcasters that soO has really been building throughout the, this series so far. I mean, not counting the Queens, of course, guys.
Yeah. queens kind of count as everything sometimes, right, Kev?
Yeah, they do. But, you know, when we talk about these scary things at Zerg, even though queens can be terrifying
I think if you're special, you're way more worried about. It's way harder to kill the BC with an abduct play than it is with like fungal or something. But I don't even think I'm not sure spellcasters at this point. Now that he's got ghosts in the mix, he already researched enhanced shockwaves. So EMP is a huge target. He even gets the one Raven for the Dorito cannon to make those corruptors super susceptible to those. Think about it this way, he doesn't have any carapace upgrades for the air, so those corruptors will have 0 armor, and actually it might be a -1 if they're hit by a Dorito cannon.
Well, we're gonna get a couple of parasitic bombs on these BCs as well, so the DPS of the Zerg army does seem quite alright, but the Yamatas are just melting these corruptors like it's nothing.
And the medevac brings the ghosts over to get even more snipes onto this army. He can't engage that while he's Dorito dusted, as those liberators are gonna come back over. Oh, those corruptors clump up. You have to be so careful.
I mean, that massive bank that soO had once upon a time, well, that's pretty much gone, guys, with only 67 drones as well. It's gonna take a while before he's able to build that up again. There is a base on the right top side, so maybe soO can start saturating that one. We're back to 27 corruptors. Now that is still enough corruptors that I would say that soO can absolutely crush a fight with.
Yeah, at this point though, with those Liberator numbers, because he never got any air carapace, it is such a huge deal. Because he is going to, the corruptors are gonna have -1 armor if they get hit by that Raven anti-armor missile, and then that splash damage becomes ridiculous.
Those 2 BCs gotta get the hell out of there. This orbital command is in a lot of trouble and will most likely go down. A couple of random Brood Lords. I mean, soO is pretty much broke, but he does still have an army. He's got one more real shot, and just not just winning a fight, but he needs to crush the fight. He needs to absolutely dominate it.
And it looks like, based on what we have on the field at the moment, whatever that fight will have won't include more Vipers. I think Parasitic Bomb is important for dealing with those Liberators.
Isn't it crazy to watch soO play Zerg? He's like, does he not watch any of the other Zergs?
Oh my
He's like, yeah, I could make Infestors or more Vipers, or I can have 40 Corruptors and just try to win with units. Hey, there's an Infestor, oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, it finally happened.
Yeah.
Transformation Servos is really nice. Those Hellbats will be able to deal with those links pretty effectively. Wow, what a game. What am I witnessing here?
40 Corruptors against 12 Battlecruisers, that's going to be the fight. I mean, 10B.
It's amazing because if he gets the anti-armor missile and gets this fight where he wants with the Corruptors clump up at all, he's going to slaughter that Zerg army. But if he gets a good spread, the anti-armor missile doesn't hit, and he gets like a fungal or something in there, or infested Terrans, with those 40 Corruptors, special dies instantly too.
Yeah, 6 Infestors is definitely some potential. All of these Liberators are going to move forward as well. If the Lips can get on top of the Infestors, that'd be massive. Here we go. This is very well, or could very well be the game-deciding fight.
Yeah, we have the Infested Terrans on the right side. Battlecruisers going for the Yamatos. Liberators are going to unsiege, and I think he's just going to try and take this, but getting hit from all angles definitely not going to help. The Liberators not able to get the damage done that they're looking for just yet. We still have 6 Battlecruisers alive. That 40 Corruptor count has been reduced to 14. Everything is going to die. He's going to teleport the BCs out. He saves 5 of them. And when we talk about low eco games, Kevin, I'm not really seeing many mineral patches available for either player, but there is a base down on the left and the northeast.
He's Ghost. He's Ghost are getting a couple of snipes in there in the end, picking up a few more Corruptors. That's quite big. No, like, it still feels that soO maybe has some fresher bases, right?
I think the biggest problem is SpeCial needs another base. He needed another base a while ago. That's where 40 Corruptors are nice. They're pretty good at killing command centers, especially when they lift off to try and run away.
Comparing that fight to the fight we saw before, where all 35 Corruptors were clumped up, like that was a disaster for soO. I think this fight was much more beautiful, right? He avoided the Liberators with the Infestors, was able to make sure that a couple of infested Terrans participated in that battle as well, landed a fungal, and then Corruptors were basically coming in from every single freaking angle, and that just made it so much harder for SpeCial to get any of that splash damage on these air units.
Yeah, the Battlecruisers are always going to be best doing those run-by hits, and I think SpeCial thought he was going to win the game with that fight. In my mind, if you're a Terran player with Battlecruisers and you're going to take a head-to-head engagement, you should expect that the game is going to end at that point, because you're most likely going to lose some of your BCs, and if you had instead, say, floated them over towards the left side of the map while doing another Hellion run by, you can maybe focus on a hatch or two, Yamato some units, teleport back out, and kind of continue to play this war of attrition, but another base gets sniped. That was the main command center, so he's losing orbital count now, which means his potential for even getting income off of mules is going to start to decrease.
I love how the 2 newest bases in this game are basically right next to each other. That command center is almost scouted by creep. I can't really blame soO for thinking that the right top side was going to be the main target, because it felt like that was going to be the freshest base. Now suddenly we have a Terran base right next to the Zerg economy at 9 o'clock.
I think SpeCial maybe playing a little too close to the chest with his army, because he's continuously keeping his army away from the base that he's actually taking. And soO's like, oh yeah, well, I'll just float over here and kill that command center. And then SpeCial runs his army over there while he takes a base back on the other side. And then it just flips the other way very quickly.
soO still has a little bit of money in the bank, so he can make a few more roaches to be safe against these Hellbats. The armies are quite close to each other in the right top side of the map, so keep a close eye on the minimap. We are looking at this Hellbat fight. It seems like SpeCial got a cancel on that base of soO. These Warcrawls are going to go down as well. I like that he's bringing SCVs with the fight. I mean, a lot of these BCs, they're obviously super tanky, so they'll take damage, but if you can repair them during the fight, that can really have a big impact, especially if these battles go on for a long time.
Yeah, 100%. Those ghosts in the medevac are incredibly important. If you could get an EMP onto the infestors, that'd be so nice. And the reason that medevac is also really amazing is like all the Ravagers come over, they're like, oh, let's kill the ghost. No, you can't. Nice try.
Oh, Viper gets picked off immediately as well.
Burrowing drones in front of Ravens, 2019.
Well, soO losing 23 drones, that can't possibly make him happy. And of course, 2 bases technically, because he tried to get the base underneath this one as well. So at this point...
Oh, that was fantastic. I still am a little perplexed at the commitment to the air. I feel like in these situations, like Zerg has like really good tools for dealing with stuff like BCs once you start to get the infestors in. And like if he had tried to go into like more Thors or something, I'm not entirely sure that there'd be a whole lot for soO to deal with on the ground army level with like Liberator support, but boy, this is sure made for a hell of an interesting game, Kev.
I mean, I feel most games today have been very interesting. We're just starting the global finals. It doesn't even really feel like
it's almost like we've got some of the best players in the world here.
It's like almost it took these nerds a year to get here, and now they're fighting for everything. No, it's really good. This is obviously the way we want to see these games play out. We don't want to see too many 6 or 7 minute games. We've had plenty of those throughout the year, and that can be StarCraft as well. But I think the longer games are often the ones that we remember a little better and feel a little more epic. Like, I know the supplies have been very close for a long time, and soO has a monstrous army, but I feel that SpeCial is in a good spot to win this game, though.
I think it's definitely SpeCial's game to lose. Yeah. Like the army composition, like he's got ghosts, he's got some Liberators, Vikings. It's hard to push with this army, like attacking into that with the BCs. If soO splits like he did in the last fight, you're not going to kill that army. Which is my only concern is like, why aren't we seeing the battlecruisers like try to go around the left side of the map and just snipe a base and teleport out?
I mean, he does know there are infestors, so I guess he's a little bit worried about getting fungal. Or
yeah, but I feel like you need to be decisive though, because this soO is going to, like, the infestors generate that infinite value with the energy, and the BCs do that with Yamato and teleport, but you have to use it.
But I think maybe he just feels like he doesn't have to do it because he's already winning it. And maybe he's more focused on not throwing the game rather than trying to make a play.
Yeah.
Because I think he's probably feeling that the next big fight is about to happen, and it felt that the previous fight could have very well been game ending. Well, it wasn't. Here we are again, 27 minutes into the game. Both players are maxed out. They don't have a lot of money in the bank, but these armies are staring at each other. And I think they're ready to duke it out real soon.
Yeah, this is some scary stuff. The Broodlord count is not crazy. Like there's a world where these Vikings can still do some stuff while the BCs try to move out and harass in some way, but the Hellions are also totally fine for that. That's one of the things that makes that transformation service upgrade so nice. Because this game has become such an airfest, like what is actually on the ground that can fight? With 5 Roaches and 4 Ravagers and 14 Lings. Well, Hellbats one-shot the Lings now that they have +3, so you just kind of throw Hellions at them and try and buy all of that time, move some of these faster units out. Hell, those Vikings could probably land and kill a lot of this too, while if the infestors aren't here. Are the Corruptors just going to try and pick off the infrastructure?
This actually feels a bit weird. Now a couple of these missile turrets are going to go down. As SpeCial brought all of his units up to the top side. I'm not exactly sure why he did that. Was there a reason to go here?
The army movement from SpeCial this game has been a little bit disconcerting for me. Those Corruptors, every time
army though, that is a big Terran army.
Every time those Corruptors clump up though, I'm like, a well-placed Dorito cannon and 2 shots from those Liberators are going to kill everything.
We've got 8 Libs, but we also have 8 Infestors. There's still 1 Viper in the mix as well, but I think he wants to save the energy for Parasitic Bomb, right? I think Parasitic Bomb...
On the Vikings would be
Viking or the Libs. I think on the Libs is quite nice as well.
Yeah. The full Parasitic Bomb kind of takes him down to 1 shot from the Corruptors, but the Liberators are also going to clump really hard. It doesn't do a whole lot versus the BCs, but Every Yamato that he can get in this situation is really nice, though, pre-fight. I'm not sure that the investment was made into Neural Parasite. I didn't see that at any point, so I believe the focus will just be on Fungal to hold units in place and the Infested Terran support. But Hellbat's getting into this space again. So many more drones going to get picked off. Gets another one.
Yep. 46 Corruptors, though. I don't really understand why soO didn't just keep his roaches there, because there isn't really anything to gain here for his roaches on the right top side of the map. I mean, yes, there are 4 ghosts, but those ghosts are always chilling inside of the medevac anyway, so the roaches are never going to get close. This is awkward.
That's the abduct you want. The abduct you want is on the medevac. Get rid of the ghosts, and then suddenly this becomes a whole lot trickier.
I mean, that is actually kind of funny. There's so much value in that one medevac, if the Viper is able to land that abduct.
The way he's moving the whole army away, though, my anxiety is just going through the roof right now, because this space will be dislodged. You need to bring your army here to do this. So if you want to try and counterattack, that's cool.
He wants to take out the bases of soO.
I would have liked to see him have a command center in the bottom left, like ready to land or something, so that he could immediately start mining there, because now he has no income. That's his only mining base. That's all he has.
Yeah, on the other end, you can also say that soO doesn't really have a mining base, right? If SpeCial is able to take out these bases in the left top side, even though soO is going to try to take the base on the right top side again, I thought maybe the SCVs could settle for the hatchery there.
I'd actually like to see the SCVs fight that.
Yeah.
Think, what is there really on the ground? Like, not a lot.
A Ravager and a couple of roaches. Now the SCVs are going to make their way to the left bottom side of the map, where I guess SpeCial is going to take his last space. These Hellions just kind of pass the roaches in the middle of the map. This gets so awkward, because this map is absolutely massive, and the armies are quite slow, to say the least. I mean, especially Broodlords, they are just terribly slow. So we're just in a very unique, awkward situation.
I still think with the scans, you could probably try to do a drive-by on the infrastructure or something with the BCs, and as long as you're scanning, you can always teleport out. This whole game has been very awkward. You can really see that both players feel a lot of stress and pressure, because I feel like SpeCial would do that, but he's very concerned about being caught off guard, and he's like, I really don't want to throw this game.
These games are so draining as well for players. Like, that's something I think we often underestimate as viewers and even commentators, but it's like, it's so mentally draining to be playing a game for 30 minutes, because even though we might see moments where it's like, for 3 or 4 minutes, not too much happened in these last 3 or 4 minutes. As a player, you're on the edge of your seat at any given moment, because you know one bad engagement and all your hard efforts, well, they were for nothing. It's all gone. Couple of neurals land, one big parasitic bomb or a fungal growth, and this game can end. So as a player, this is incredibly stressful, and once again, super draining. Like, how do you even start game 3 after this? I'd be done, man. I need a break.
Yeah, that's, well, unfortunately, the break doesn't come until after game 3, Kev. Oh, no. But, yeah, I think the coolest part about this, like, looking at it practically, is that both of these armies could easily win, like, controlled properly. Like, if he clumps those Corruptors too much, eats a bad parasitic bomb, gets EMP'd, like, SpeCial wins, like, hardcore. But if he whiffs those, if he misses those, the Corruptors get a couple good shots off those fungals you were talking about, or neural parasites, then the SpeCial will lose his whole army instantly too. So
imagine if they were able to get there a little bit quicker, or if he would have sent a couple of Hellions to the left side immediately, then all the remaining drones would have been pretty much clumped up. These armies are getting, once again, awfully close towards each other.
That's something you gotta be careful about. At that point, the Hellbats just doing what they can, buying time, being annoying.
Now, we had a legendary games once upon a time during the WCS Global Finals between Neeb and Rogue, where I think Neeb ended up with 199, or was it 200 on his supply?
He had 199. He had one Rogue.
We're getting close. He's trying to actually impede these infestors.
All right, he gets a few of them. A couple of fungals do land. Infested Terrans are coming out. The battlecruisers are going to show up to bring in the rear. Spore Crawlers are getting damage done. We do have the Dorito Cannon launched onto all of these units. Vikings and battlecruisers doing everything they possibly can. We still got 7 BCs, but 25 Corruptors remain on the map, trying to micro them back individually, but adding in the Corrosive Bile as well. And those spores, but the Viking support still doing everything he can. The Corruptor count is down to just 9. SpeCial has taken the supply lead. He's pushing him back, and this could be everything that he's needed. soO has nothing else, nothing in production, no more income. The battlecruiser's still standing while the Vikings defending them. If he can keep just a few of these BCs alive, there will be nothing to stop them. I think there's only like 4 Corruptors left. That's it. He's building nothing.
He's pretty much broke. I mean, there's still 4 infestors, and let's never underestimate that. But SpeCial with this base, mining in the left bottom side of the map, that fight was nuts. I felt like it started off in a disastrous way because he got fungal. There was a parasitic bomb, but eventually all of these Terran units started to spread out a little bit, and he microed the battle cruisers back during that battle as well.
Oh my
I think
God.
that made a pretty big difference. soO is gonna mine a little bit again. But his army, as soon as there is some HP back on these BCs, I mean, there should be no stopping this army.
Kevin,
He's too broke to even repair.
34 minutes in, 50 supply, 1 base. That's when you start Neural Parasite. I'm wondering now if he thought he had it before that fight, because it sure as hell would have been nice.
But he never had an insane infestor count though, right? I think the highest we got was 8. I mean, is that really?
Now the Hellions can actually bully too.
Yeah.
Like you can
Everything
use the
hurts.
servos.
With this economy and this supply, everything hurts. Losing a single drone will already hurt.
Yeah, just burning the Infestor energy, really. Like the BC count and the Viking count, there's nothing that can deal with this, short of some really amazing like fungal bile combos. Yeah. I'm like combining these words now.
But there's probably not going to be enough energy on these infestors for soO to save the day here. He's going to try to catch up in supply, but now he's making links, and I think everybody knows once you start making Zerglings against Vikings and battle cruisers, it's often a very clear sign that you're in trouble.
It's not the strategy I'd recommend, Kevin.
No.
BCs are going to roast those drones. There's nothing that can deal with this. There's a handful of infestors, but they just burned all their energy too. Like, what's he going to do? Drop 10 infested Terrans, the BCs will kill before they even morph.
Man, that was such a fight.
He's building 2 more battle cruisers now, by the way.
Was that like 50 Corruptors, by the way?
48. I think it was 48 Corruptors. He killed damn near all of them.
But only +1 armor. It's probably also.
Well,
like
he finished +1 Carapace as that fight ended, Kev. That's I'm not gonna lie, that's a huge thing. That is so big. Those Corruptors were at -1 armor. The amount of damage they were taking from battle cruisers and liberators, 2 units that don't really do a lot of damage, is huge. But remember that Vikings also attacked twice. Like, those Vikings were the MVPs in that battle because he's like, well, Vikings, I'm not worried about those. But, oh wait, my Corruptors are literally taking +1 bonus damage per hit. And all of these units are attacking like 10 times a second.
And of course, don't forget that SpeCial his upgrades have been at 3-3 for the longest time.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way you want to have it.
Yeah. He never got +3 air attack either.
Yeah, it's quite bizarre, right? That soO had this much time and then ended up with an army that consisted of 48 Corruptors, but then the upgrades were only 2-1. It's funny because we don't often talk about upgrades like being that meaningful for these higher tier units, but they are. Like if Marines would be 3-3 against 2-1, we would make the biggest fuss in the world. It's like, oh, that's impossible to win for the 2-1 player. But obviously for air, the same goes to some degree. It's a bit different when infestors can have a massive impact as well, or of course an anti-armor missile and stuff like that. But these upgrades are still very important, and being maxed out on an army that only has 2-1 upgraded air units is kind of odd.
The battle cruiser at +3 attack has 8 damage versus air. A Corruptor by default has 2 armor, right? So normally it's supposed to only do like maximum damage would be like 6 per hit. But with the anti-armor missile, he's doing 9 damage. He's doing more damage than the battle cruiser can actually even do because of that. Because he just didn't have any upgrades, and that makes a huge difference when you've got so many of these units fighting, and that's what allows you to kill 48 Corruptors. He's just going to move this field of spores forward. But at some point, I think soO is just going to realize there's nothing he can do against this. He doesn't have the economy to build anything that can stop this.
You know what was so bizarre about that fight as well? That it was right above the dance floor in the middle of the map. So it was hard to see the creep. And then there were a couple of spore crawlers hidden as well. And I was like, I wonder if SpeCial even saw these spores. Because you don't often see spores participate in a battle for that long. But those spores pushed out insane damage. But it still didn't make the difference. 2 spores apparently not enough. If that was 5 or 6, that would have been a completely different fight, that's for sure.
Yeah. And the Observer just now pointing out again that +1 Carapace. So even if they fought now, like the BCs and Vikings are still in a great spot. And he's ready to end it. He's going to scan, Yamato the Infestors, and that's it. Neural Parasite, by the way, it doesn't cancel Yamato. Stick a fork in this one, Roddy.
Because it's all over.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to try to time the, because this game's done with the GG. There we go. Because this game's done. SpeCial ties it up 1-1 after well, that was a hell of a game, Kev. There's so much that happened in that match, but lack of upgrades on soO's part really hurt him. I think if he has +3 Carapace, like if you focus on that versus Liberator BC, I think he actually wins that fight over the spores. but SpeCial just controlled his army perfectly as well. Like, that was so good. The ghost drop with the enhanced shockwaves onto the infestors, like every little thing was so good.
Yeah, definitely a lot of great plays on both sides being made, but it is bizarre to see a 30-minute game and ending up with those armies and then not seeing the proper upgrades on the side of soO. He had a lot of upgrades, but they were a little bit all over the board, and no Neural Parasite either. Like, soO has always been a different Zerg, and soO's strength has never been in sitting back and making a million Infestors or Vipers. That's just not the kind of player he is, but that could have been a better army for sure.
Yeah, and a slow burn on the end of that one as we go to Winter's Gate. But man, those games are so, everything's just on like the edge of a knife, right? Because if he does have those upgrades and he messes that up, and especially since he started Neural Parasite after that fight, I can only imagine he thought he had it prior. It must have been the only reason he would do it. But ladies and gentlemen, it's tied up 1-1. Let's get into game number 3 of soO versus SpeCial. In the top left, our Zerg player from South Korea.
Chivo, soO.
And in the bottom right, our battlecruiser building Mexican Terran player. He is
Ocean Gaming, SpeCial.
This actually reminds me a little bit of GSL vs. the World, where Juanito walked around telling us how much BC suck all day long, and then he played against Raynor and he just kept building battlecruisers. So it's kind of funny how he likes to talk about how much he doesn't like the unit and how much the unit is just not good enough for what it should be. But meanwhile, he ends up building them every single TVZ, Nate.
I think especially versus soO, just based on what we've seen in this best of 5 so far, it seems soO really doesn't want to go fast for the tech counter to that. Like if you knew that your Zerg opponent was not going to build Infestors or Vipers really until you had gotten to like the 35-minute mark, and even then they wouldn't build a lot of them, I think I would be like, yeah, battlecruisers are actually really good in this situation because you can do so much micro with them, with the Liberators, because really the hard part is dealing with the Fungal and the Neural Parasite.
Yep. And
with that not on the table, I'm going to give the credit to SpeCial on that. I assume in his preparation, he's like, oh yeah, in the late game, soO doesn't rush for spellcasters. Like, he's going to try and just win the big fight against me, and I can actually play more technical army, which is quite nice, because I actually don't think he could get away with a lot of these builds if he was playing against Dark. Like, in a theoretical winners match, I see a world where Dark hits him with a lot of aggression, and like if he tries to go BCs, he just dies.
I must say SpeCial has been doing a really good job and at least keeping Zerg in the dark for a little bit, right? Like making it harder to figure out what he's actually doing. I think in the first game on Acropolis, he did a really good job with the Marine positioning, making it hard for soO to really figure out what was happening. And then in game 2, multiple Overseers were sent towards the main base, but the Cyclones kept locking onto those things, kept picking them off before they showed up. And I mean, being able to get 4 battlecruisers out and 5 and 6 almost done before a world-class Zerg player like soO has figured out that you're building BCs, I think that's quite impressive.
Oh, that's massive. Yeah. And actually, you say that, and I'm reminded as well, that game started with a reactored Marine, reactored Medevac opening that did nothing and got delayed by a Zergling run by, and then he still got damage done after with the Hellion follow-up.
Yeah, and the Marines were still part of that one too, right? It just felt that like if things could have been even better for SpeCial. It could have been a bit smoother. But this is what I like about games like the one we just saw. There wasn't one moment that really stood out. Like, yeah, of course that start. SpeCial got a lot of drones that maybe he shouldn't have gotten in the end. But then we had multiple epic fights. And it's really impossible to say, like, this is the one key point of this game. And this is why the game went a certain way. Like, yeah, the upgrades of soO, a little bit of a mystery for us. It feels like he had all the time in the world, and he definitely had the economy as well to at least get 3-3 upgrades there, or at least get the +3 armor.
Yeah, and look at this time. He's doing, yet again, something different, right? He's rallying out additional Hellions with the first Reaper, and he's getting a Marauder. And this could be one of those builds where he gets that Viking, clears out, and then does like a Marauder drop with like Hellbats or Hellions. But the other reason, and I'm just going to say this, is random as it might come out, but if you thought there was a chance you might get Nidus, if you build 2 Marauders, as weird as like a build like this might be, you actually shut it down. Like 2 Marauders will stop a Nidus if you were to open it like this and you thought the Zerg might get aggressive in game 3.
Does he have Concussive yet? Because I feel like, isn't Concussive supposed to be part of this build to tag those queens?
It's not as... I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal. Like maybe he forgot it, but the way that bonuses in speed and slowdowns work, like the concussive shell slowdown affects the queen's speed like off creep, like its base speed, but it doesn't really affect the bonus speed. He is going to get it now, so I guess it researches pretty quickly. But I never thought it was that big of a deal. Unless you got off creep, then things get wild.
I mean, I think it's mostly just, it's not so much for the Marauders, but it's more about the Hellbats, right? Like, Hellbats can't really ever get on top of Queens, but then the concussive shell suddenly helps out quite a bit.
At that point, the very small slowdown is nice for the Hellbats, yeah.
All right, well, soO's getting a little ambitious here with his Queens. If I was soO, I wouldn't get too far forward, because the Medevac is about to show up with a couple of Marauders as well. This could be massive, I think, for SpeCial.
Oh yeah, no, that's awesome. Especially like if you're forcing out any of this energy to be burned early on, get the Marauders up front. You've got so much to heal. There's no Baneling Nest. What is soO gonna do against this? The Viking's gonna land too.
So far, he's just running, Nate. That is what he's going to do. So far, he is just running. Hellbats trying to get on top of the Queens as well. All of these links in the right top side are just getting fried.
Oh my goodness, the control out of SpeCial uses the Medevac to even save the Hellbat that would have died. He's got Hellbats and Marauders bullying the Queens. The rest of them get the drones. It's just Zerglings pouring out for soO. That is not going to be able to stop Hellbats with this Medevac support. And I think he's got the Baneling Nest, but he doesn't have any Banelings on the field, so this attack continues to just pack a wallop. 10+ drones killed by SpeCial, and he's not showing any signs of slowing down.
And look at the HP on that Medevac, by the way. I know the Medevac is almost out of energy, but he has done a phenomenal job in keeping it alive.
GG. Oh my God, SpeCial goes up 2-1. Wow. I mean, that was, he murdered him right there.
Just like that, Nate. 38-minute game on Disco Bloodbath. That was awesome, but it can also be a 6-minute game on Winter's Gate.
Oh my God.
So just getting a little too adventurous there. I think the Queens were too far forward. Losing a Queen before that fight starts, I think is always disastrous for the Zerg. But I think from that point on, all he could do was run. He had no Roach Warren, he had no Baneling Nest. And all the links that popped, they got fried immediately. And I must say, like, I feel like what Terran players often do wrong with this push is that they get right in there with the Medevac, but then the Queen's gone down the Medevac. You lose a lot of micro potential, and you lose the ability to heal your Marauders and Hellbats as well. I mean, I think SpeCial did such a good job in babysitting that Medevac.
Yeah, an amazing game. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go into Game 4, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series Global Finals, round of 16. We are here in our second match of Group A. Yes, you heard that correctly, because boy, oh boy, Roddy, we have had some crazy long matches, and we are charging along here. This series has been quite explosive, to say the least.
Yep, we had a super long game, a pretty long game, and a very short one so far. So what's this gonna be? In the middle, we're gonna get ready to hop into Thunderbird, a map that I would say in general provides slightly longer games, especially in this matchup, but we'll see.
I think if you want to play greedy as SpeCial, there's going to be a big opportunity to try and go for one of those builds. Maybe we see soO try to turn on the aggression, because I feel like SpeCial has done a fantastic job, even in the game he lost. He has dictated the pace of this series extremely well. We're going to get ready to jump into this one, ladies and gentlemen. Time for Game 4 for soO versus SpeCial. Our first player in the Northwest, our Korean Zerg.
Chivo, soO.
Quite a mountain to climb to try and come back. Can he do it against our Blue Terran player in the Southeast?
Ocean Gaming, SpeCial.
Don't know how he does it every year here at the Global Finals. SpeCial just shows up. If this was a best of 3 night, he would have already had it, and he would have already been moving on to that winners match. Now he still has a mountain to climb, because taking out soO, even just once in the upcoming 2 games, is not going to be easy. Oh, all right, he's really switching it up, isn't he? Command center first here on Thunderbird.
Yes, you know, one of the fun things people talk about, SpeCial is a difficult opponent to prepare for, because he kind of plays his own style, and he mostly practices and lives in Korea, right? Hey there, we all having a good time out here at the round of 16. It's just the first day of our action this weekend, but he really does just kind of play his own style, and he reminds me a lot of this guy. I was fanboying over him because I never get to come to soO, but I was like looking at TY over there. I'm like, this is another guy that does builds like this. He's really pioneered this style in the Korean scene, and I would really be surprised if SpeCial hadn't consulted with him a lot before going into some of these matches. So I like it. We've seen a different look from SpeCial almost every single map.
Yeah, I mean, that's in general the way you want to approach these tournaments as well. You want to get ready for it, but it is very human-like to eventually find an opening that you just think works the best for you, because the more different playstyles you play, you know, it's hard to be a master of everything. So eventually you're going to lean a little more towards certain openings, but so far, SpeCial not doing that. He's really making it hard. And I must say, one thing that so far stood out for me, said it before, is that he's actually doing a very good job in keeping soO in the dark. A lot of people have been talking about how easy it is for Zerg to scout everything and always be aware of what they're playing against with the Overlord speed and whatnot. Well, SpeCial showing us that that doesn't necessarily always have to be the case. And I think that has really had a big impact on how these games have played out so far, and why we are looking at a 2-1 lead for SpeCial.
Yeah, look at the greed. Look at that. So he goes command center first, barracks, 1 gas, factory, 3rd command center. I think he has 2 Marines.
It's 2 minutes and 50 seconds into the game. It's ridiculous.
You can't really draft up a greedier build than this. The gas actually makes it greedier, because you're going for this tech with that fast 3rd command center. So you're not even like pumping out Marines. You're not building a bunker. You're just like, well, I'm just going to tech up, because soO hasn't been aggressive all game. He's been on the back foot because he hasn't been able to take control in the early game at all. Even the one game that he won, it was that double BC rush where he was just kind of stuck inside of his base defending with queens until SpeCial basically threw too many of his battlecruisers away. Yeah, this is disgusting. This is the pinnacle of Terran greed right here.
A couple of Hellions will come out soon, and he's going to need them as well, keeping these SCVs safe. This is actually very annoying. I really like how soO has been doing this not once but twice now in this series. Like, how often do you randomly run 4 Zerglings to the other side of the map? But maybe he's picking up on the fact that SpeCial's trying to do, or trying to at least prevent Overlords from getting into the main base at all cost.
This tells you everything.
Yeah. I mean, that scout is massive.
And the thing is, that bunker, seeing that even as well. So the gas in the natural this early says battlecruisers. It has to be battlecruisers. It's the only thing you would get second gas that fast for against Zerg. And the third command center timing, of course, but the fact that he would build the bunker that fast means that soO realizes that SpeCial is aware of how greedy he's being. And he's like, oh, Lings are coming, start the bunker just in case, start the bunker just in case. And he's
4 Overlords,
he's gonna
by
let
the
it
way.
sit there until he knows he's safe.
4 Overlords at once are on the way now for
He's
soO.
got a Roach Warren. He could do, this could be like, he could try Ling Ravager bust him here.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be
that's
surprised.
6 roaches. I feel like that's a few too many just to be safe. That's 9 roaches, Nate. All right, soO is going to switch things up. In this game, our Korean Zerg is finally going to bring some of the aggression to the other side of the map.
Has he salvaged the bunker yet? I think it's still there. Well, I don't think he's going to survive this attack. If he starts the battle cruiser right now, he can't afford to. Or he starts it right now. He starts the armory.
A long time.
Well, yeah, he's got 64 seconds, I think.
Is there
before
nothing
it's
on the
done.
map to scout right now for SpeCial? Does he just have no units there at all? He brought the Hellions all the way back home, worried about another Ling run by or something along these lines. Well, the first roaches are already making their way to the other side of the map. Nate, there is no tank, and I don't see a bunker in this natural.
You know, this is the part where someone would be like, but Nate, none of these units could kill a battle cruiser. Well, a battle cruiser is good, but it's not going to kill 40 Zerglings, 7 Ravagers, and 3 Roaches before he loses every single unit he has. If SpeCial somehow survives this, I'm going to lose it, because I think he's super dead against this attack right now.
Yeah, I don't really see the Hellions will obviously not do very good against these Roaches and these Ravagers. All of those depots are going to go down. I mean, this first BC is almost out, but that BC has got some work to do. He's going to put in the overtime, because this is a lot of Zerg to take care of.
Yeah, well, he's doing the smart thing right now, too. He puts the Ravagers up front. He's like, look, if you pull SCVs against Ravagers, then the Lings will kill them. But he's going to morph the Hellbats, but you just drop Corrosive Vials on this. This is really frustrating. This is really hard to deal with. The armory is really nice because the Hellbats can do well versus the Lings in that situation. But this BC's got to do so much for SpeCial.
I must say, SpeCial's doing a really good job so far. A lot of the Lings are already gone. Most of the Ravagers are going to go down as well. The SCVs are now going to join the fight.
The Hellbats are actually pretty freaking sweet.
They have been amazing so far. Now, these Hellbats have been absolutely amazing. More Lings go down. So 27 SCVs have gone down.
Did he actually hold this?
I actually think this is sort of a hold. Those cross the balls. Oh! Okay, those really hurt. That's 10 more SCVs going down in the end. Fantastic crossover, and the gates are still sort of open in the front as well. So that means more Lings will stream in. If he survived this...
He needs to get the wall back up. Well, he's got 3 orbital commands. Yeah, no. He could lose almost every worker. He's fine.
Well, I mean, imagine if he survives this with 11 more, Nate. Before those crossover balls, he had 27. That would have been fantastic.
Yeah, wow, this is a weird game. This is crazy. I would try to move.
Did he jump? Oh,
yeah,
he jumped. Okay.
I think that's a bit of a risky play, but oh no, the Lings get the surround on the Hellions. Did he build the depots back in his main? That's the real question. Nope. GG. soO's gonna tie this series up 2-2. That's what I was waiting for. I'm like, I saw this opening, and I'm like, okay, as soon as soO sees this, like, there is nothing. You have to assume with that gas it's BC, and you know you have so much time to get that attack ready to go. He had the Roach Warren already done by the time he realized it was BC. He's like, okay, this should be an easy cleanup. And honestly, SpeCial held that way better than I thought he should. But the moment he yeeted that BC across the map, I'm like, maybe you'll kill 7 or 8 drones, but you're going to lose everything back home again.
And it was only a couple of Lings as well. That wasn't even a big attack anymore.
No.
With a little bit of micro.
If those Hellions were Hellbats, he probably would have just killed
of course.
it too.
No, you can just stand there and you'll be fine. And if they are Hellions in Hellion mode and you actually control them, they would also take care of these Lings. But that was a really interesting game because it felt like a lot of things happened there very quickly. Like, why were all the Hellions at home for so long for SpeCial? It felt that maybe if he would have seen it a tiny bit faster, it would have been okay, but maybe he just knew it was going to come as well.
Of Lings, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the first tiny run by maybe terrified him a little bit. Either way, we are heading to another Game 5 between SpeCial and soO. It's coming up right now.
It all ends here for our second match of the day. In the top left, the Red Zerg just tying things up.
Chivo, soO.
And in the bottom right, our greedy Terran being punished. Can he close this series out?
Ocean Gaming, SpeCial.
It really feels like both best of 5 so far have been quite the story. Look at this, by the way, a spawning pool first for soO. I think that's the first time in his entire best of 5 that we've seen that. Now I kind of wonder if it's going to be one of those, like I'm going to build a couple of links, I'm going to keep the Reaper if you open the Reaper on your side of the map, and then suddenly I'll show up with roaches. But we don't see a gas being taken yet, but I think the previous best of 5, Showtime versus Dark, and now this one as well, these games, Nate, are hard to summon up, right? It's not like you can just walk up to another StarCraft fan. It's like, you know, we saw X, Y, Z. Like, yeah, you can say we saw a lot of battle cruises, but you'd be selling this series short, okay? Because this series was a lot more than one guy building a couple of BCs.
Yeah, this is one of those openings out of soO that looks like it could be one of those gut check builds. You get like the 4 to 6 lings. The queen is out super early, so the Reaper can't really do anything on the other side of the map. And you just try to run around it and get the deny on the command center or delay the expansion, which can pay off in a huge, huge, huge way. And oftentimes, this isn't like you're like, oh, pull first, but the Zerg isn't really actually trying to be aggressive. They're going to take maybe a fast third behind that. And those Zerglings are just to try and it's like just a soft, it's a gut check type build is what it is.
Now, is this the kind of map where SpeCial just plays a normal Marine tank style? I kind of feel like this map is quite alright for it, right? There's a couple of good tank spots on the high ground where you can pressure the low ground expanse with a couple of Marines there.
Yeah, I think this is the map to do something more standard on. Yeah. The way that the third is open a bit, and the multiple angles you can attack from, I don't like mech on this map. I'm not crazy about it. Like, the tanks, of course, can be good, but I think they're going to be supported a lot better for the possible run-by angles by Bio. So I wouldn't be surprised by that. The fact that this Reaper came home, did he see those Zerglings?
Well, he's going to see them now.
So that's a really huge pickup, too, because if that command center gets delayed, it's so annoying because for Terran players, your builds are very precise. The command center is the depot in this build, so you usually get blocked if that gets delayed.
And this is already a big victory, right? Because now you also know that your opponent opened up with those links, and those links were actually not able to do anything at all. So this is very nice. It's minor, but it does give you that little momentum booster. If you're SpeCial right now, you're like, all right, this is a solid start. Let's just keep it going from here. Let's not make any unnecessary mistakes. You know what I like as well as we're heading into Game 5 is that both players won a rather short one. I wouldn't even call it like cheesy, but just like aggressive build. Both of them worked.
Look
but
at
they
that,
also,
kill.
Yeah, but they also both won a long drawn out macro game. Well, SpeCial's a bit terrified here because I guess he hasn't scouted yet, right? He's worried about roaches.
He doesn't know if there's a third, and he doesn't know if like there's a bunch of queens that have been made or if there's like a really fast roach horn. Based on what he's seen, it could be the same thing as last game, right? So you have to be careful.
It could have also been a much quicker roach opening.
Yeah, that's true. But the Reaper's gonna poke the natural. Queens are just going to push it down, spreading creep. And he saw that, I think Hellion saw the third base. That's very important. So he's going to build mines.
Yeah.
Mine drop versus Zerg. I hate it.
I remember for a while this opening with like 6 Marines in a mine was actually quite popular. And you really hated it. You were always you're always raving about how much you hated that opening.
Versus Zerg, I don't know why. I feel like I rarely see the mine drops versus Zerg do a whole lot. Yeah. But versus Protoss, I'm like, oh no, they're amazing. You know, it's just one of those like weird things where.
I mean, the splash radius is a lot more impactful, right, against probes than it is against drones.
Yeah, I think so. I think that must be it. There's something weird. Maybe it's just the satisfying look of probes exploding when mines blow them up. That could also be it. Third command center behind this, but it's a much safer build, right? We have the Banshees with the cloak, and they're not going to be tremendous unless the Zerg really screws up, but they're amazing at the defense, and for a Zerg player, until you have Lair, you can't really do anything about Banshees on the map.
I think the idea is now to pull units outside of out of position, and then maybe the Hellions can find an opening. The Widow Mine will connect with a single drone so far. The second mine is actually going to connect with just a couple of links, but maybe the Hellions right now. I believe that the Hellions have been looking for an opening. Yes, they have, but there is nothing to kill here.
No. Fantastic target fire on the medevac, by the way. soO doesn't really lose any drones to the mine drop, and he gets that medevac with those queens. Maybe that's the part.
There's no spore, by the way, at the third. And no spore in the natural either.
This could be one of those situations where he gets kind of baited. He cloaked really far out, too. Yeah. He's like, I do not want
this is going to hurt a lot. Wow, I mean, this Banshee should be able to get at least 7 or 8 drones, if not more.
That's
fantastic. That's massive. You don't normally get that. The Hellions is still here as well. SpeCial's going to have to micro these Hellions a little bit. Good job there by soO, getting the surround in the end. But this Banshee is still going crazy. There is that 8 drone kill I was talking about, and that's going to be it for now.
You know, Zerg players have been so good at dealing with, like, a lot of these BC openers over the course of the year, and you talked about, or we've talked about time to time, like the Banshee feels like it doesn't have that same level of punch, but this game kind of really demonstrates that example where, like, if you can cause enough chaos that the Zerg's not ready for it, they can still do so much damage, and that little bit is so nice because soO's cranking out the drones, sure, but the layer's only just finished, and now Stim is done. So with those Banshees still on the field, SpeCial has a lot of opportunity to try and get work done.
Keeping the Banshees alive here is actually so damn important, because it's not about the damage that they will contribute in a fight. It's just about pulling units out of position over and over again, and maybe forcing out another spore, picking off a drone that is being bounced between these bases.
Scouting the layer timing.
Yep, there's a lot of value in these Banshees. You really don't want to lose them right now.
Yeah, pull them back, especially that fourth base with where it's starting right now.
They can put some serious damage on it, maybe even
if he sent the Banshees there right now, he cancels it.
Yeah.
Like, almost guaranteed. The Queens are all in the main, and there's not actually a creep spread on the west side of that hatch, so he'd have poking room. And here we go, he finds the fourth base, and I think he should be able to get a cancel here. That's fantastic.
I don't see how Queens are going to get there
No,
in time.
wouldn't be
Queens
fast
are
enough.
quite fast on creep, but not fast enough. So this is nice. Oh no, that bench is getting very close to the 3 Queens. And that is a big mistake, I think, by SpeCial, because once again, keeping them alive as a tag team, one-shotting those workers is nice. But hey, Stim is done. 1-1 upgrades are finishing up. And this game is about to heat up, as it's all or nothing for both these lovely nerds.
We see starting to build a wall on the east side of that third base. That on Triton, that third base is going to be pretty exposed. You got multiple ways for the Zerg to come in, so being aggressive as Terran is really nice. There's the scan outside that fourth. Now let's keep in mind, because that hatchery was canceled the first time, if these Marines can get up and force another cancel, there's not as many hit points on that base. Baneling speed is done. Needs to pick up those Marines, and he will. Few of them get left behind. But
Link run by on the other side of the map as well, once again being annoying. I love how soO is getting so much with so little, right? Like 4 or 5 links, what is that? That's not supposed to get anything. But once again, all SCVs stop mining and 4 SCVs go down.
That Banshee, by the way, parked himself between the bases while the Queen was running around. I think he killed the Overseer with the Marines, maybe? Okay, now it's going to fly away now. But that fourth base is still really close, almost a chance to get the cancel on that. I mean, worst case scenario, he can always go for it later.
What is happening with soO's macro over here? I guess the Queens have been so busy defending that they haven't really been injecting, but seeing a player of soO's caliber with like 1800 minerals and 800 gas, of course he was building, he was banking up for Mudas a little bit, but that's still a little too much. He's supply blocked as well, Nate. Okay, there are 3 Overlords on the way, but it's gonna take a little while before they're done. soO needs units. I guess he can still morph a few more Banes, but this is a terrifying attack. I don't think this is gonna be easy at all for soO to keep this base alive. And don't forget that it's already bruised quite badly.
Yeah, that expansion is going to be really easy to kill. The Mutalisk is going to come in from the flank. Marines trying to run over and help. Siege tanks need to target fire down those Banelings. A few of them are still alive as the tanks get swallowed up. Really good engagement there for soO. And it lined up right with when his 1-1 finished. So SpeCial lost his upgrade advantage right as that attack started.
That was absolutely perfect. I really don't think that he could have asked for much more than that, considering the fact that he had quite a bit of money in the bank and it didn't feel like everything was that smooth leading up to that fight. That was very, very well done by soO, getting all 3 tanks, putting the Marines a bit out of position as well with these Mutas, making it easier for the Banelings to connect to the remaining Marines.
He's getting drilling claws. I was going to say take the Banshee and just right-click on the hatch, but unfortunately there are units there to protect it. And soO recovering very nicely in this game, Kev. Yeah, I'm totally with you.
But SpeCial's still in it. With 71 SCVs, he's more than fine. He can absolutely start building up an army. And this is not the biggest map ever out there, so it's not impossible for bio units to make it to the other side of the map to get in some of these dangerous positions that Zerg players want to prevent at all costs.
I really like the drilling claws timing. The second factory this quick, I think is so important, especially versus the Sling Bane Muta. Those Widow Mines are incredibly powerful, and it's so hard to move out with tanks. I feel like in this meta, or in this year really, I feel like the tank pushes with the bio have not done, or have been as reliable as those mine move outs.
It's a lot because of the maps, right? The maps are in general so big, and I do think this is one of the smaller maps, if not the smallest, together with Ephemeron, I guess. So I think it is possible, but I definitely like the mines a little bit more in this combo as well.
We don't have like the tank spots like on Karos Junction here, right? So.
But we're gonna get a couple. I mean, maybe there's some potential for a tank like on the high ground, like underneath the 3rd base of soO, something like that. This is nice for soO as well. Just casually fights a tank, but
I feel like that's gonna. I mean, if he repairs that and brings it home, I'm like, wow. But, all right, drilling claws is done.
Oh, Widow Mines are gonna kill the Thor.
Poor Thor.
Yeah. Friendly fire.
Well, taking this 4th base is really important at this point in time. The concern often becomes about that transition into whether it's like the Ultras or the Broodlords. Because it's still a mostly Marine-based army, right? And as a Terran, you have to ask yourself, what's the point of time where you want to try and, make that late game tech transition, whether it's going to be into the Ghosts or, I guess, battle cruisers if you're SpeCial.
100 Zerglings, by the way, right now. I mean, Lings are amazing and all, but the 84 Marines, they should do quite well. I think that it's safe to say that soO is going to need a lot more Banes than he currently has. 16 just doesn't really seem like it's going to cut it. I think 25 is even quite low. Don't forget that we have multiple Widow Mines in the mix with Drilling Claws. There's going to be a Thor that maybe can soak up a couple Banes as well. I think soO needs more Banelings.
He's going to tread past that first Mine Marine, splitting up behind the Siege Tank. Still a lot of Banelings, though. Hasn't been able to get a big connection on them. The Mutas do come up on that right side. Overseer's soaking up some of the Mine hits, too. And, well, you know what? You're talking about 100 Lings. There's only 10 now, so he's going to have to spend a lot of money in his larva rebuilding those. Maybe SpeCial has a moment to try and pressure this 5th base. Being able to knock this down would be massive, but I think with this many Banelings and Mutas, it's extremely risky. On creep, yes, especially on creep.
Gotta wait a little bit before that creep fades. It's 10 seconds away. That Burrow finishes up, by the way. We could see some burrowed Baneling play. That'd be very exciting. 26 more Banes are on the way. I think soO wants to engage, but there's still a little bit of creep. There are Widow Mines as well.
Build the offensive missile turret. Go for it.
You gotta be careful here.
The man in the missile turret never wanted to live that far out. These units are going to try and catch SpeCial on their retreat, but it is off creep, so should be relatively easy for him to get those splits. And the mine, oh, perfect drag. Unfortunately, not able to get hit on those Banes. The mines have not been doing a whole lot for SpeCial, and soO is crashing down onto the Terran army.
It almost felt like he should have left that Tor in the front and make it a bit harder for those Lings and Banes to really get up that ramp. But suddenly soO takes a pretty convincing supply lead here. While he's stacking up, by the way, this is not an all-in by any means. Banelings will crash into that bunker. It just disappears. Oh. All of the SCVs go down as well, and this is going from bad to worse for the Mexican Terran player.
Yeah, that Thor trying to be the anchor in a very rough sea for SpeCial, but almost careful there. Unburrows that mine at the perfect time before it blows up the Thor. And there you go, there's that one burrowed Zergling. He's like, all right, now you're gonna have to be thinking about Burrow for the rest of this game. And he's got the Hive, right? So those final upgrades, the Adrenal, the 3-3. So those Zerglings are just gonna be way better than they were before. And we don't have a real tier 3 transition from SpeCial out of this position.
Nope, this is gonna be more bio units, more Widow Mines. He is gonna have his 3-3 upgrades, which is obviously gonna have some impact, but you said it, the mines, it just didn't feel like the mines were able to get done what they're supposed to get done there, right? It felt like there was potential for 1 or 2 massive mine hits, but they didn't do it. If anything, they actually damaged the Terran units quite a bit there.
Oh yeah, no, those were some super friendly fire mines. And now the Mutas can kind of fly around and cause that mayhem while he builds up Ultralisks. So SpeCial's already been building Marauders, which is nice. The Widow Mines can chunk out some health from them, and certainly if the Thor gets into a 1v1 against an Ultra, it can do quite a bit of damage, but you need to be... It's just going to be so rough, because I feel like for Zerg, the play here is you knock the Terran down to 3 bases, and then they're just dead. So SpeCial has to be really on top of it, dealing with that one Baneling run by on the right side, but the Zerg really wants to just knock one of your bases off, and then it's almost impossible to recover at this point.
It does feel that SpeCial's gonna have one more shot, right? Like, it's gonna be harder and harder as the more advanced soO's army is gonna become, the more powerful it will become as well, while SpeCial's army is most likely gonna stay the same.
Yep.
But he's definitely gonna be able to max out one more time and maybe have one good shot. And if the mines can just finally do what they're supposed to do, maybe there is some more potential. So far, these mines are also not really delivering. These Ultras getting now right on top of all these mines, and it feels like this is not even that much of a fight. Where is SpeCial's army?
It's dead. That's where it is mostly. The Ultralisks go far enough off creep to finally die, but he's killed the economy of that 3rd base. That one Ultra's still there. The Mutas did what they needed to do. All the tech units were picked off, so it's just Marines and Marauders. I don't see any Medivacs. I don't see any mines supporting this. He had that one drop in the northeast, so he picked off that base, but soO has another expansion finishing up at this point in time, and the Mutas have cleaned that up.
soO's doing a really good job in not overextending either, right? Like, yeah, he's losing the basic units, but then he doesn't just throw away those 4 or 5 Ultras like you often see Zerg players do. No. And that's where things can get a bit dicey for Zerg all of a sudden, but in this case it's not. And it just feels that SpeCial's entire army is not there, right? Like, you look at the supplies, like, he should have a little more than what is on our screen, but it's just not showing up in time, and then soO will always have plenty of units to fall back onto.
Yeah, the story for this game, the Widow Mines really didn't get any big hits, and soO, great control, GG, is able to take this victory, and we'll move on to the winners match of Group A for the round of 16.
Gets a revenge. SpeCial won the last 3 personal encounters between these two, but soO wins when it matters the most. Here in the group stage of the global finals, he can now embrace himself for a ZVZ encounter. one of his arch rivals, I'd say, Dark, in the upper bracket match of Group A. Meanwhile, SpeCial will go up versus Showtime in the lower bracket match.
Yeah, I mean, if you're SpeCial, gotta be regretting a little bit that the level of greed on Thunderbird. I mean, getting punished like that when you're in that comfortable 2-1 situation, that's gotta hurt, and you're going into Triton where you know that this map is gonna be, it had a lot of exposed angles, and we saw a lot of those run-bys coming in, hitting with the Baneling flanks on the right side. He squeezed those Zerglings into the third a few times in that game, and SpeCial was never really able to get into the position that he wanted to be in.
Yeah, we didn't see massive Zergling run-bys by soO, but the little ones, they always achieved just enough for it to be quite annoying, and those things do add up. And I must say, the way that he handled that first attack of SpeCial with the 3 tanks that were in a somewhat scary position, he made it look easy. So I think overall, well-deserved victory, but it was a very fun best of 5.
Indeed, it was. It's time to hear from the man himself. Let's go up to soO with soO.
Thank you very much, guys. Congratulations, soO, with this victory. It means a lot because not only do you finally get revenge on the recent losses that you have had against SpeCial, it was a very close 3-2 victory. So tell us what's going through your head right now. 어윤수 선수 일단 축하드리고요. 최근에 SpeCial 선수에게 자주 패배를 했었는데 그거 복수한 소감 얘기해 주세요.
오늘 경기가 쉽지 않을 거라고 예상했는데 그 역시 예상대로 쉽지 않았고 스페셜 선수가 말했듯이 블리즈컨에서는 항상 제가 이기는 것 같아요. 다른 작은 대회에서 질 수도 있지만 이런 큰 대회에서가 중요하니까 기분 좋습니다.
He says, well, coming into today, I did not think it would be easy at all, and just as I expected, it wasn't easy at all. But that being said, as SpeCial said himself, whenever it comes to BlizzCon and the WCS Global Finals, I feel like it always works out for me, and so I'm really, really happy that it did and that I was able to win. And soO, when it comes to a lot of Zerg players, they like to use the Hive units a lot more, but I noticed that with you, you don't really like to use those spellcasters. So is there a reason that you prefer to use those corruptors? 이제 많은 저그 선수들이 그 배틀 상대로 특히 그 마법 유닛들을 사용을 하는데 윤수 선수는 타락기를 좋아하는 이유가 있나요?
뭐 이기는 방법은 여러 개가 있다고 생각하고 저는 그 중에 좀 다른 방법을 택하는 건데 아닌 것 같아요. 승률이 잘 안 나오네요.
So he says, you know, when it comes to winning, there's so many different strategies that you can use. This is just the strategy that I chose to use, but if I'm being honest, I think I'm using the wrong strategy. So I'm well aware of that. But with this victory now, with this 3-2 victory, moving forward, you're going to be playing a Zerg in Dark. And the last time you played him, it was at the Super Tournament where he took you down 3-0. Do you think you can get revenge on him? 이제 다음 상대할 선수가 박영우 선수인데 슈퍼 토너먼트에서 만났을 때는 3-0으로 졌어요. 오늘 복수할 수 있을까요?
오늘을 좀 대비해서 준비하긴 했는데 솔직히 3-0 당할 줄은 몰랐거든요. 그만큼 이제 상대가 워낙 잘하기 때문에 인정하고 제 전력을 다해야 될 것 같아요.
He says, for sure, you know, I remember back then I prepared so hard, but I really didn't expect to lose 3-0. That being said, I think that today, going up against him today, I'm really going to have to bring out every strategy that I have against him since he is a very strong player. But for now, congratulations once again, soO. Headed into that winner's match, and guys, after the break, that's exactly the match that we are going to see. It'll be Dark taking on soO.
2019 WCS Global Finals, Round 16.